So he's got maybe all of them. Right.
Yeah.
So he's got maybe all of them. Right.
Yeah.
So he's got maybe all of them. Right.
Yeah.
So he's got maybe all of them. Right.
Yeah.
So he's got maybe all of them. Right.
Yeah.
So he's got maybe all of them. Right.
Yeah.
So he's got maybe all of them. Right.
Yeah.
So he's got maybe all of them. Right.
Yeah.
So he's got maybe all of them. Right.
Yeah.
So he's got maybe all of them. Right.
Yeah.
So he's got maybe all of them. Right.
Yeah.
So he's got maybe all of them. Right.
Yeah.
So he's got maybe all of them. Right.
Yeah.
So he's got maybe all of them. Right.
Yeah.
So he's got maybe all of them. Right.
Yeah.
So he's got maybe all of them. Right.
Yeah.
So he's got maybe all of them. Right.
Yeah.
So he's got maybe all of them. Right.
Yeah.
So he's got maybe all of them. Right.
Yeah.
So he's got maybe all of them. Right.
Yeah.
So he's got maybe all of them. Right.
Yeah.
So he's got maybe all of them. Right.
Yeah.
So he's got maybe all of them. Right.
Yeah.
So he's got maybe all of them. Right.
Yeah.
So he's got maybe all of them.
Yeah. I think he's okay there.
What was that? Sorry?
Find something for the Lamington to lean
A little
against.
mounting.
Oh, yes.
Yeah, why not?
Just guys, let's just hear you, please.
Yep.
How you're talking, you might.
Might as well pour them all out.
Well, this would be me in my normal speaking voice at this level of loudness.
And I'm much louder than him. I always usually talk about here once I get speeded up.
All right.
Somewhere like that.
Yeah, and this is me, and I'll be talking like this. Are those mics picking us up from all the way over there? Right. Well, David's about to tell us whether it's not.
Yeah.
Could you talk again from there?
Yep, I'll be talking something like this
Nigel?
about it. Yep.
This will be me speaking.
Okay, beautiful.
This normal speaking voice.
Let's just...
All sounds good. So I reckon you can take it away.
Do you want me to close the door?
Thank you.
Was that okay?
It was. We're live.
Ding. Oh, you've got one.
Yeah, I've got
We'll
one.
do a proper ding. You want more, Steve? Yeah.
Yeah, go nuts because it's a long way away. On one of the shots, I have the Eiffel Tower poking out the top of my head. I just noticed. That's all right.
It's not quite your head.
This one, look. I reckon that's probably about the right shot all night.
And we just sort of appear. We just waffle past. That's right. Here he is. Grinning.
And I'm after
that's
Steve's
right.
glass. Yeah, that's it through.
What's
Mine.
this? Oh, that's mine. Yes.
Yep.
Lovely. Okay.
Okay. Mute the phone.
I'm... Nigel, can you just make sure you're in tightly? Yep.
Yep. It should be good.
One of
There
us
was my
testing.
folder. There was a folder somewhere, wasn't there? What did I do with that? Did you? I brought it in. Oh, we got as far as here. Thanks, Kirsty. Suddenly thought he might.
Wow, we're in an RF cage.
Yeah, I thought that too.
Yeah, zero mobile.
Yep. Oops.
Okay, no one escapes. Now, is that going to be in your way? It is, isn't it?
No, not really. You need to
like
see it though, don't you? You want to check it, don't you?
I do want to keep an eye on it.
That's all right. Now we're set. If you can, you're
But
able
if
to.
I just move this a little bit without upsetting
Yep.
everybody's
Yep.
framing,
Yep.
I wonder if that will be okay. Oh, that's the shot. What camera is that? That's that one? See, that's where I've got a horn in my head. I'll try and sit up taller. Probably
Yeah,
not
you
a
can't
bad-
see it now. Yeah, that's true.
Yeah,
It's gone.
that's better.
Yeah.
All right. Are we all rolling?
We're rolling.
Okay, we're live on
Everything you've said
YouTube.
for the last 5 minutes.
Everyone. Hello, everyone. I did say it was going to be behind the scenes.
We didn't really mean that about the premiere.
No.
That was before the microphone was turned
Ah,
on.
good.
Yes. Goodbye to all our careers. All right. Well, let's start. No, that's all good. I just had a mental blank. What's the theme of Is It News this week?
The theme tonight, well, I had the choice of, bad things in Adelaide and political corruption, politicians and car crashes, and I went for just design in Adelaide.
Ooh. Speaking of car crashes.
Design in Adelaide.
Yeah.
Yeah, design, things that design in Adelaide. Yep.
Okay, so let's just do the intro. So this is the bit that goes in our music theme. We've got about 1:20 to fill. That's what we're about to do first. All right. So, hi everyone. Welcome to the beginning of our recording of episode 260. This is how it happens. We do it bit by bit. This is the voiceover that goes under our theme. Let's do it.
Yep. Clap in every so often.
Yep.
Betty's.
Yep. Hi everyone and welcome to the Adelaide Show, the weekly podcast that puts South Australian passion on centre stage. I'm Steve Davis and joining me at Studio 91 in Morford Vale tonight, I have Nigel Dobson-Keefe.
Hello, and hello to our listeners.
And Keith Conlon.
And g'day to you and everybody.
Oh, it's good to hear that voice again, Keith.
Oh, thank you. Yeah, saving it up for you.
I used to wake up to that voice and then you started on radio. I'm not saying they're both linked. Anyway, you're here tonight because you are Mr. South Australia, and we've been the podcast trying to uncover the passion of South Australia for the last 5 years, and we thought, what a fitting way to say goodbye to it.
You've done it, and it's lovely to be here to see you off.
Oh, gee, that sounded emphatic. One-way tickets. This week, the SA Drink of the Week, we actually have 3, but the one that is going to be in the main limelight is the Small Change Shiraz 2017. Rhys Howlett is the winemaker responsible for that. Not alone, I think he's got a mate that helps him. We'll talk about him later as well, but at the moment, Rhys is in the spotlight because he's also providing for us tonight the Song of the Week, which is a song called Eagle on the Hill, which we listened to in the car on the way here, didn't we?
You did. I like it.
You
Yeah,
liked
yeah.
it. Very
Wraps
good.
up South Australia very nicely, or actually just being here.
Yes. In Is It News, Nigel, the topic this week?
Is design in Adelaide.
All right, looking forward to that. And in 100 weeks ago, we're going to take you back to our night at Michael Allen Productions in the Adelaide Hills, where there was also a live streaming studio where a lot of live theatre is done. And so there we are, full circle, and all about to happen as we say goodbye after 5 years of consecutive weeks of producing the Adelaide show. All that and a whole lot more coming up on this week's episode of The Adelaide Show. All right, I've got a few things there I can cut around with in the editing suite. So that's the intro bit done. Let's move on to the South Australian Drink of the Week. So let me just get my palette. And can we just get this mic a little closer to you, please, Keith?
Okay. Yep. There.
All right, yeah. Because we don't have the luxury of the 5AA studio picking up everything. So I might do this a few times if you've drifted on.
Yep.
Oh, yes, and by the way, if you're watching, there are bits like this in between each segment where we just collect our thoughts, and that's what we're doing now, aided by this wine. There's an elusive thing I'm just trying to grab. Yep. Okay. Oh, I like that at the end too. Okay, we're all good. Let's do this, shall we?
Ready?
Hi everyone, and welcome to episode 260 of the Adelaide Show, the last of our 5-year run of consecutive weekly episodes, and we begin each episode, and we have done all the way through, by toasting our late patron Queen Adelaide. And Keith Conlon, there's extra significance in toasting her today, isn't there?
There is.
What's that?
Happy birthday, Queen Adelaide.
Wow.
She was born on this day.
How's that for timing?
It's all deliberate, folks.
Yes, okay, yeah, we'll take the credit for that. So, gentlemen, would you raise your glasses
Yes.
to the Queen?
The Queen.
To the Queen, and all who may sail in her.
Fantastic, and happy birthday, Queen Adelaide. Tell me, just briefly, I've, since doing this program, and since you were first on our show many weeks ago, we've got the actual number of the episode coming up later, you have made a soft spot in my heart for Queen Adelaide, because if there was someone even a Republican could look up to, I think she is one, because she was so much of the people and didn't draw from the crown purse like other members of the monarchy were known to do.
No, that's true. She was quite modest about her means. And in fact, it was partly because of the King William IV too. They liked to live at Bushy House, which is sort of out in the outer suburbs of London today, but it was a fair way out of town. They didn't like Buckingham Palace.
Right.
And, so she's known for that, and she's known for her great kindness to Princess Victoria, who became the Queen, because in terms of South Australian thinking, there we are, we get here in late 1836, King William IV still on the throne, the town is named after her, but by 1837, he's fallen off the perch.
Yes.
And so the young Princess Victoria is nurtured by the Dowager Queen, and she looks after her, and people are very fond of her for that.
Wow.
She's very conservative, by the way, though.
Oh, was she?
Right Tory.
Oh,
yeah,
was she really?
wasn't that fond of all that Reform Act stuff that was going on in the 1830s, but it didn't affect the way things fell and it didn't affect the way we got here, so we made it.
Maybe. I'm glad I didn't know that until episode 2.
I was going to say, that's it. We're finishing the podcast now. Now we've found that out. It's all over.
Yes, there's a reason for everything. But let's turn our attention to the South Australian Drink of the Week, which is something we always open our program with. And this week we have a small change Shiraz. It's a 2017. Now, Rhys Howlett is the man behind this, and his buddy Andrew as well. They have forged together. Rhys in particular has about 16 years experience working for different winemakers and etc., including the Darrenberg people. Yes,
Has he been at Langhorne Creek for a long time as well?
I'm not sure. I think he uses facilities at Langhorne Creek, so he nurtures with Andy, who is very much the creator of the grapes, etc. They've made these blends, and they're using Bleasdale as the place where they do the magic.
Talking about heritage.
Oh, wow.
Oh, the old Potts Bleasdale Winery. Have you ever been down there and seen the massive old red gum press?
No, I haven't.
Oh, you got to do that.
Oh,
Oh, it really is one of the sort of great historical monuments to South Australian wine.
So red gum press, not
it's-
so much for making newspapers, but for pressing grapes. Is that what
Exactly.
Right.
You've got a dirty, great big sort of basket made out of slats of timber.
Yeah.
And then you've got a huge old sort of chunk of red gum over the top, which they have to sort of cantilever into place and then bring down the press on top of the grapes. And the grapes, I've actually had the grapes squirt on me. It was a rare privilege.
Yes, exactly.
And that's the old basket press, as they call it.
Wow.
You hear of Rockford. Rocky's got one. But it's massive. It takes a 2-story job by the time the great beam of red gum is up there, and it's 19th century. They only fire it up on special occasions. And you know, I'm glad we're talking about Langhorne Creek, because it's a bit of a lost region, isn't it? And yet, year after year, there's a bit of Langhorne Creek Shiraz goes into the Grange. Not absolutely every year, because it's a blend, but there's always some good stuff there, and there's some great old vineyards down that way, and some great new ones too. In fact, they score very well, despite there being a small number of wineries. They score very well at national shows.
I'd like to think that the Potts family back in the beginning used to travel around, and they would have seen the forebears for Rockford perhaps and said, "You call that a basket press? That's not a basket press. This is a basket press."
Stick it on your bucket list. Go down to Langhorne Creek. It's a lovely cruise around anyway.
Yeah.
Some nice tasting down there. Several wineries with good cellar doors. Go to Potts,
All right.
the Bleasdale Winery.
Well, let's turn to tasting this particular drop, 2007. What I love about this, by the way, if you find some of this wine, and you can look up small change wines online, talk to either Andy or Rhys. They're responsible for the sales. I love the wording. They're just really quite frank in the way they've written it. Basically, everyone who meets Rhys and knows he works in wine says, "Oh, do you do a Shiraz?" And so that's why he's made a Shiraz.
And he says, "Do you have a Shiraz? I only drink Shiraz. I like thick, chocolatey, fruity, earthy South Australian Shiraz. Do you have one of those?" "Yep, we got one of those." And this is it.
This is it. Now, at the moment, some of that thick chocolatiness isn't quite there. Rhys told me, open up the bottle, and because this is so young, we are going to notice great change in the glass as the night goes.
Because it's a bit cold too, because we've come down in the cool.
We have.
And so it'll warm up and it will also open up.
Yes.
Yeah.
Now, we've got a sort of a dark red in the glass with some bright notes to it as well, but on the palate, for some reason, the first thing that gripped me when I tried this is I thought of raspberry seatbelts, and I have no idea how that relates because we don't encourage drink driving, but there's something about some sort of restrainer made out of raspberry that I felt across my palate as I tucked into this. And then, in light of your story, there's some notes in this that is like, you know, some of the grape juice spilled onto your shirt. It's like grabbing a bit of Keith Conlon's shirt and just sucking a little bit of the fruit out of that fresh linen in the mix of this. The other thing I've noticed is right at the end, it does a little ta-da on the pallet as it dances, and you can feel the tap dancing feet of all the tannin just go off to the edge of your foot. A bit like you doing your footlights and your old stage hammy theatre as well. So
it was a little bit. That was
bit hard.
bit
I think,
harsh.
Steve, yeah.
I thought, really.
From someone
True,
who was
but a bit
very
harsh.
much into the alternative, very hammy, existential style theatre.
Yeah.
I meant that as a compliment.
Well, I'll take it as that. I'm getting a bit of earth.
Are you
I'm
really?
getting a bit of the earth
Yes.
of because the old Langhorne Creek area gets flooded in a good year, flooded a couple of times in a good year. Down comes the Angus out of the hills at the back of Strath. You reckon?
Yep.
Yeah.
They do, and that's an important way they manage down there as well. In fact, not only that, I'll just raise you a little bit. I just got the sense of an earth mover gouging the earth along my palate just then, because you've got the fresh tones and scents that get released in moments like that as well. So, and I think this is really starting to open up. So, in fact, we're probably being helped by the TV lights here at Studio 91. So this is going to come alive before we know it. So,
Looking forward to the chocolate.
yes, and Nigel?
Yeah, no, the fruit. I think we know before it was a bit on the cool side, the wine. So yeah, as it is warming up, initially we get the berry coming out of it, but I think that earthy notes are starting to come out as it gets warmer.
This also happens sometimes.
I'll tell you something while he takes another sip. That a nice little sort of variation. The actual home of small change wines is at Penneshaw on Kangaroo Island, a new-ish wine area for South Australia, of course.
If only we had a bridge to drive over there to go see them.
Let's not start. All that's left for me
You'll
to
only
say.
get Frank Pangolo excited.
Come on, it's the last show. We can burn some bridges.
Very nice. You've saved your best jokes to the end. All that's left for me to say is the 2017 Small Change Shiraz is the South Australian drink of the week.
It's interesting they've
Pardon me, some of that went down the wrong way.
They've actually printed on the bottle rather than using a label as well.
Yeah, it's engraved on or whatever they call it.
That'd be great.
Yeah, that,
Thank you,
It's
Chris.
screen
that
print.
technique.
Just sort of
printed
screen
on.
print, I'd
Yeah,
say,
it's
yeah.
a nice touch.
I don't think I've ever really seen it
Thank
before.
you.
I've seen it a couple of times. I reckon.
Percy's getting some water.
the French
You
do
might
it
get
with
some
one of
wine to me
their,
before then.
The French do it with one of their bubblies.
Live television. All right. We're about to do the interview proper, so I think we might just wait till when Kirsty comes in.
Yep.
I'm just making sure that doesn't get knocked. There. Okay. Hi, everyone watching at home, if you are watching tonight. Of course, we're also recording this on YouTube for posterity.
Gee. You mean it doesn't stop here?
It never. I don't do anything that fades. I like anything I do to stand the test of time.
Whereas if you've worked in daily radio, you want it exactly the other way.
Yeah, but you hit the erase button on the tapes through the degausser and never happened.
Yep.
And also for the people at home, thank you to Brian. He's out in the other room in the studio, and I've been noticing at the corner of my eye, he's been dancing between cameras when someone's doing something particularly interesting. I see he's not doing it at the moment, otherwise he would have just... Interesting.
He's just
There we go. There we go.
See? You're
See?
just interesting enough to crack that change of camera.
Yes, that was Keith then.
Yeah.
Uh,
And we're going to test him now, are we?
Yeah.
So
There we
it's
go.
my turn. See, if I want to speak meaningfully down the barrel, this is the way it's done.
and my reaction. And Nigel, break the scene. Beautiful.
Wow.
This
We'll get this right eventually.
this will not be making the final cut. Yes,
No.
please come through, Kirsty. Thank you.
Enough of this. You don't muck about on this show, do you?
No,
No, I don't think you probably understand why we use audio as our preferred medium.
So actually, I must admit, I love
No, we're fine.
radio and audio, even though
Oh,
you know,
wait.
people say, "Oh, he did telly."
Yes.
I love
I
radio
just
and
realised
audio.
what it was.
In fact, many moons ago,
Yes.
a fellow called Marshall McLuhan, who was
Yes.
an early
What-
professor of media, he must have been the first in the world because we didn't use it, we didn't even call it media. We just had the wireless and the telly. So he said,
Keep it over here.
he said that
Yep.
television is a cool
Yeah, look.
medium
There you go.
and radio is a warm medium, and I think he's right. There's a much more engagement. You're right up. You are with one person when you're talking on radio or on audio on a podcast. Whereas with
Actually, no, a
telly,
few more people than that. Just
no, at a time.
yeah, I know.
I notice your numbers have lurched into the dozens.
Yeah, I have.
No, it's and he's right. It's there's a warmth and a familiarity and all those things about doing the podcast as opposed to doing the telecast. Although naturally, the best TV people bridge that gap. They bridge it, and it's terrific.
And who are you thinking of when you say that?
My mate David.
Oh, okay. David
Attenborough.
Oh, David.
If only here. I met him. I did meet him.
I've interviewed him.
Oh, yeah, same here. Many years ago. And what a generous interview. What a generous interviewee.
Yes.
Wonderful.
Yes.
And
Although-
a true... I mean, he took wildlife television from the back blocks of Sunday afternoon to prime time on Sunday night, didn't he? In both England and America and Australia. A long time ago now. And he's still doing it. Isn't that marvellous? What a role model.
I even did an ad when I was at 5DN in his voice.
Oh, come on, give us your best Dave.
Well, I haven't done it for years now.
No.
Behind the Larry Lamington doll, we see the Poplars Botrytis Chardonnay. It's paused, it's waiting, and soon, all too soon, it will be consumed.
Very good. That's
pretty good.
That's pretty good.
Yeah.
Has he been hiding that all these years, or
He
did
has.
does he burst into that?
That's the first time I've heard that one.
Whoa!
Yeah.
Excellent. Then you got a whole new career in front of
Yep.
you.
Well, there is.
You can do tours.
I can be his backup.
Yes,
Well, in the same way they
He's
like,
understudy.
in the same way with video, they put like dead actors into movies nowadays.
Yeah,
like
thank you.
when he does pass on, you'll be able to do the continue the voice over on the documentaries.
All right, let's do this properly.
Right.
We're about to move to the main interview proper.
And we are going to do proper. We now have a
clapperboard. Let me get a... I've got to take one quick selfie shot of that. All right. Ready? So I'll come in. Oh, yes. Ready? 1, 2. Look at that. And I actually do a proper selfie with me in there as well.
Well, here we go. Oh, tricky. Yeah, he's good with the board.
Lovely. Okay, let's do this. Sorry if you watch this, but this is what happens every week, wherever you are.
Except
Yeah,
the clever board. We don't get this every week.
No, we don't.
They tidy it all up later.
Yes,
Yeah.
we do. A bit like my hairdresser. All right. Are you ready?
Yep.
Oh, that
wasn't
wasn't
much.
very
That was-
loud. No.
Nah.
Don't break it. Oh, sorry, I just ruined it. Okay. Hang on, just wait. 1 second. 1 second. Breathe. Focus. I think my ecosystem's balanced now. And the interviewer is ready to commence.
They don't make these clever boards for audio.
No, you have got, more clap than the average person. Keith Conlon has appeared on the Adelaide Show podcast twice. His first appearance was in episode 28 in March of 2014 at the launch of the Adelaideia History app. Then, in August of 2014, he reappeared as my co-presenter as we interviewed Martin Hamilton Smith just after he'd left the Liberal Party. Keith's appearances rank among our most popular episodes, next to Don Violi from Chrome Hair at Prospect 2. So we thought it would be fitting to sign off after 5 years of consecutive weekly programming with Mr. South Australia himself. Keith, welcome to the formal part of the program.
It's great to be here. And I'm honoured to be part of the last show. We're going to talk about why?
Well, it's been a bit of a journey. I did some sums. I know from my side, this is not taking Nigel's side into account, it's a minimum of 15 hours a week to produce this. Yeah. And so when you plan it, do it, edit it, and promote it, it's that's 2 full working days on top of everything else.
I get off a lot lightly because Is It News is only like 1 to 2 hours with a lot of reading of Trove.
Yeah. Yeah, so it just comes a time when I just needed to refreshen the batteries. And look, thinking about what comes next, I'd hate to see the Adelaide Show die. We have a lot of very fond listeners and people in our community, and got some ideas on how to reshape what we do to be a little lighter. So after a break of a few weeks, we might tap our toe back in the water. We'll see.
Good to hear.
Got some plans. Because transitions like this are huge. And another reason for having you here, apart from you being steeped in South Australian history, is you've had big changes in your life in the past, moving from TV, then radio, and then when you stepped away from the radio the last time, that was sort of out of the limelight in some ways, in a way that breakfast radio is so invasive as a part of your life. How did you cope with that transition?
One part of me coped extremely well.
Yeah,
the physical body. Yes. Because it's a most unnatural and unhealthy thing to do, especially if you try to lead a normal life on top of it. And because you get up at 4 in the morning and you just go like hell. And then, particularly in the latter part of the 13 years I did at Brekkie Radio on AA, the digital age had arrived, and so the news cycle didn't ever stop. You didn't sort of say, oh, no worries, we'll worry about what's in the Age and the Tiser tomorrow morning. No, it rolls on. And so you just keep your finger in the pie. And so it was very demanding. Luckily, it was about stuff that I loved doing anyway, and I'm still doing bits of it. You keep up with current affairs, you keep up with fun stuff and serious stuff, and particularly Adelaidean stuff. But then you had to be on the case all the time. And so the great relief was it didn't really matter if you just fell a bit behind for a couple of days or a couple of weeks for that matter. Sure. And I must admit, I just occasionally withdraw pain. People say, wouldn't you love to be in it? It had to be pretty big for me to want to be in it again because you'd sort of done your time. Yeah. So that's what you'll do. You've done your time and you will move on and occasionally think, well, I would have made a good Adelaide show, but plenty else happening.
So I've got a question there, though. These days, with that 24/7 approach, younger people who are now getting into the media, do you reckon there's going to be a higher rate of burnout where you've just got to be on it every day and you don't ever really get a break from, online media, social media, and just constant news streaming around the clock?
Good question. Yeah, that is a very good question. There is no release for a serious journo, one that's really committed to their gig.
These days now, because there is no downtime, really.
No. On the other hand, there's maybe not the depth expected. I think that's the loss.
Yeah.
Is that and that's the danger. You travel wider and wider and shallower and shallower.
So you could just have 10 stock answers and just roll a 10-sided die just to see what you're saying and not really put too much into it.
Look, it depends. Look, I would call it wordsmithing. Others would call it pedantic. But if you want to be interesting to yourself and to a group of really discerning mates, as well as to everybody else, then you really got to work hard on your words and your phrasing and the way you put things, and that gets harder and harder as someone comes along and says, "Oh no, you're just back now. Just do something for radio now. We want something for online immediately, thanks. And by the way, you'll be doing the telly as well." So the demands are greater. So perhaps you're right. Perhaps we won't see that kind of veteran journo,
the long career.
Yeah, the ones that we grew up with, where they were there until Kevin Crease, for instance, as a news reader who had spent his time all his life. Well, he actually started off in popular radio. I mean, he was one of the people to invent television in South Australia in the sense that everybody said, well, okay, what do we do? And they kind of made it up. So he was one of the giants of the latter half of the 20th century. But it'd be pretty hard to do another Kevin.
Yes, it would, wouldn't it? I've got to find out one question, though, before we end. Back in episode 28, when you were on our show for the Adelaideia app launch, I went to the launch and interviewed you there. So I sort of hijacked you and hoodwinked you onto the show. We
were wandering about, weren't we? Trying out the new app.
Yes.
Out on the street.
Which still works. You can go around, if you've got the Adelaideia app, anywhere in Adelaide, you opened up, pointed at things with your camera, and it overlays information about the statue or whomever.
Yeah.
However, later that year when you came in, no one was available, and I reached out in desperation, "Keith, could you be my co-presenter?" Why did you bother? I've always wanted to know, why did you give up a Wednesday night to come and do this?
That's a pretty fair question, actually.
Yeah. Yes.
A very quiet week, was it?
Yeah, very quiet week, yeah. Hadn't had a gig for possibly months. Thought I was really going off the radar, and you get desperate. No, I reckon it was because he's a persuasive fellow, Steve, and you were podcasts were much younger, this idea of podcasts,
Right.
which we now take for granted and say, well, of course they're huge. You were doing a bit of pioneering of your own, weren't you? You were going in early, and it was about Adelaide, and it was about our culture and our history.
Right.
I'm a sucker for that combo.
Oh, wow. Okay, I'll note that for future use. Thank you very much. Yes, actually, I just saw some stats recently on the Infinite Dial survey. Something like, I think it's around 62 to 70% of Australians are familiar with podcasts now, and 13% listen regularly. So that's a pretty decent size. So admittedly, 88% still listen to radio, but 13% making time for podcasts out of nowhere, that's not a bad
Well,
chunk.
that means 13% are actually choosing really exactly what they want to listen to,
And not just taking...
and not just
Yeah.
having it in the background while they're doing whatever.
Or taking someone else's top 5 off their phone, or
Yeah.
you're choosing. That's a good point. And you're choosing what we used to call long form.
Yes,
long form journalism. It's the only thing that's getting longer.
Yeah.
Everything else is getting shorter. The TV story, the radio story, you name it. It's all bang, 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 bang.
Yes.
And yet now you can say, no, I do want 40 or 50 minutes worth.
Yep, length is my middle name. Actually, there is one last question I wasn't going to ask you. Do you listen to breakfast radio still?
Not often, but
Right.
that's because I've reverted to student hours.
Oh,
If you ask me about the Midnight Bulletin, I might cross it. but and if you ask me about who won the Tour de France last night, then that particular stage. But no, I tend to listen on occasions. I listen Wednesday mornings for a bit because I take a bike ride out,
Yes.
and therefore I'm up early enough to get on the treadle at 8:30 and head in and meet the mob.
there you go. All right, I needed to know that. So you're now the one getting residents complaining about you being a student and making noise at night time.
That's right.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yes.
Oh, you said that with great glee.
I'm not allowed to play the drums after 9 p.m. That's imposed by my good wife.
Yes.
You can sort of sneak up at 2 and just do a quick, rim shot or something, and just sneak back to bed. And it wasn't me.
I was very lucky in my youth because we lived next door to the Salvos, and I learned to play the drums at home on my dad's old country dance kit, as did my younger brother. So there's 2 young guys next door to the Salvos belting it out, and they were fairly close together in Conlon Gardens. But how could the Salvos complain? They did the open air.
Yeah.
They had
Exactly.
a band.
Exactly.
Yeah.
They would have been hitting their tambourine,
In time.
doop, 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 looking out their back door at you two.
Bringing in the sheaves, bringing in the sheaves. Okay, we're bringing in the lamos.
I'm going to open up some Lamingtons now. I'll just see, there we are. Because Sharon has been one of our most engaged and faithful listeners, Sharon Sutton from Kytons. She was quite excited you were going to be on, and so she sent a little Larry Lamington doll for you, Keith.
Oh, wow.
And...
I lust after these at the show.
Oh, do you?
I always call into the Kytons stall at the show.
Yes.
There's always a really good South Australia section in the show.
Well...
Down back, near the dairy and all that.
Dairy Pavilion's
Yeah.
#1 stop.
Oh, well,
Yeah.
well, that's another story,
Yeah.
but you've got to go to the Kytons
Now-
Lamo shop because they make them there.
I'm glad you're going to the Kyton stand
I will
because
be.
then you don't need one of these.
Oh.
Because these mini Lamingtons will be available from their show stand this year, and she sent some along for us to try. So
Unlike this pack of mini Lamingtons that won't be available to anyone in probably 20 minutes' time.
that's right.
I think they'll be
Do
gone by then.
I remember Vaughan Harvey teaching me never do maths live on radio. And I think you should never try and open up a packet of kite. Oh, there we go. I've got it.
Yeah.
Sorry, sorry for everyone listening at home.
It's actually opened quite well.
Yeah.
It has. Look at that. So please,
We get to eat these as we go.
just have one now. I mean, admittedly, this is dangerous because it's coconut.
Coconut.
And so we both know that.
If we all cough at the
Very
same
soft.
time.
Yes. So look, and Sharon, she sent us a card too. So while you boys have one of those, I'll just read you. And they've actually got Kytons cards. Look at that.
And the mini ones, the ratio of chocolate and coconut to cake is a lot higher.
It's good.
Than
Keep it
usual.
down your
Moist.
end because otherwise I'll
Very moist, yeah.
To Steve and Nigel, congrats on 260 podcasts. Thanks for keeping me entertained while driving and for having me on the show. Enjoy, Sharon and Darren from
Thanks, Sharon.
Thank you
Lovely.
very much.
We should thank them for being an ongoing icon of Adelaide and South Australia as well.
That was also, excuse me, bad radio. I'm talking with my mouth full.
This isn't radio though, this is live, so you can do that sort of thing on TV, I presume.
there was a method in my madness, apart from sharing these because, gee, they're good. And we should make some available for Kirsty and David to have as well. Yes.
Oh,
she said yes.
You'll be lucky.
Yeah.
Tourism SA has an ambassador who doesn't know what a fruit choc is. Now, what is the story? Keith, you've got your finger on the pulse still.
Well,
are not Kyneton's Lamingtons a South Australian icon?
And it's on Facebook today as well. It was getting on the pages. There was comments about this.
that Gary, whatever his name is.
Not knowing about frog cakes. And the debate was whether you should know about it or whether you're meant to do bigger things than just frog cakes and lamingtons and things. And it's like...
Look, his task as an ambassador for South Australia was obviously about our food and wine and our fine eating end. And he did do a good job of it during the MasterChef series. He fronted the ads and he clearly was enthused. And so maybe he's done his gig. But I must admit, if you're going to be an ambassador for South Australia, you're going to have to go the fruit shop and you're definitely going to have to go the floater. I don't reckon he would add one of them either.
Isn't there a website that has sort of those icon things of Adelaide, and it's got the pie floater and the fruit chocks and, and the frog cakes are part of... What is it? It's...
There's been enough BuzzFeed articles
it's
over
been,
the years.
and in fact there is a list of them because they've been properly sponsored and put out. Hagues is in there, of course, as they would be, the will be and so on. Yep. So there's a string of them, and you can look up South Australian icons, and that they will come. The list will come up. So he's just been slightly caught out to lobbed on Brekkie Radio, and they've tried him out.
It's one of those things where he could talk about South Australia on radio in California and get by with flying colours.
Yeah, what he was talking about is because one of the things that obviously tourism did for this year's MasterChef was, one presumes, pay a bucket of money to get them over here, but they did it well. They did the McLaren Vale well, they did the Barossa well, they did a big bit in Victoria Square, Central Market featured. We got a good run.
Now, there is one icon I've never had, because I had my very first Dairy Vale, Farmers Union iced coffee on live on a podcast about a year or two ago. Wow. I've never had a frog cake.
Oh,
ever.
Well, you're not the only one.
The song coming up today might make a reference to that.
Yes, true, that will. We'll talk about that. However, in some small way, I don't know if we can get a camera here, but the underpants I'm wearing tonight have a green band around them that is frog cake green.
That lime green.
Yes. So I think that passes muster.
Yeah. I think everyone knows about them, but not everyone's necessarily succumbed to the frog cake.
They are expensive, by sort of weight ratio to the relative cupcake next door.
They are, I would say, slightly rich.
They're very sweet. They are super sweet. Let's not mug about those. They are super sweet. I love them.
Now, just for the record, I will note that Keith did squirm as I was talking about my underwear there. And I could read his mind was, I'm trapped here now. So that's part of the reason we picked you up tonight. You just couldn't escape. All right.
I've locked the door.
Let's get back to South Australia proper. I mean, it's all proper. And thank you, Sharon and Darren, by the way. Colonel William Light was sent...
My mate Bill.
Yes, was sent from England to South Australia 1835 to select and survey suitable land for the new settlement.
Well, he was here early 1836. He lobbed early in 1836. He was one of the stragglers who came. You've got 1835 written down.
Well,
here.
he was sent in 1835.
He might have left.
He got the gig.
I don't want to be pedantic about language, but it was suggesting
he got the job.
Exactly.
Yeah, he did because he was hoping to be the governor and dipped out.
Oh, that I didn't know. Here's my question for you. Where, because he planned on the banks of the Torrens, where the parklands would be, the square mile, etc. Where did he plan to put the Adelaide jail? Here's a question. Keith Conlon, watch at home. Let's see how he goes.
It's a trick question.
What do you mean?
I'm going to declare it right up. It's a trick question.
Yeah?
Yes, because according to a very authoritative source... Oh, hang on. No, it was my fringe show. the horrible history of Adelaide.
Yes.
We didn't need a jail. So there was no jail on Colonel Light's plan. Am I right?
You are right.
Oh, thank goodness for that. So I thought someone's seen another plan and it's on there. Because, of course, we had no convicts. So we wouldn't have any crime.
No, like interstate, the very first building you make before the governor's residence would be the jail. Of
course.
Because most people will be needing a place to sleep, and the type of place you need in the eastern states would be a jail.
Yeah, because you've been sent here, you've been transported. And so we came out into this southern utopia and we didn't need one. But of course, things went to pieces very quickly. Our first jail, you can see a little plaque for it. And it's down at the back of Government House, now that it's got that new lovely blade fence, as they call it. There you go, the lamos. And
No,
so
the
you
lemmings will come back. They'll come back.
As you go down and go down the hill on Kintore Avenue, just before you get to the back and head down onto the parade ground, in that back corner,
Yes.
there's a plaque that says the site of the first jail. It was pretty rudimentary. It was a pretty rough sort of setup. But then, of course, very shortly thereafter, we decided to build a proper jail. And that's the one that Kingston designed, and is the one that sits on the Torrens just along from the weir.
And I think that was around 1837-ish, 1838.
Yeah, a bit later. Yeah. By the time we built it, I think it's 1841. Something like
that one. So this,
the first one.
So
yeah.
this story must relate
Yeah.
to the first one, because I discovered that the reason they decided to get a jail is suddenly naughty people from interstate escapees
there
were
we
coming
go.
in. You know.
Bloody interstaters, you know.
And
the
I just-
Victorians.
Or the Mexicans, yeah.
Yeah.
I'll read this quote from the old Adelaide
They should have
jail.
built a wall.
From the old Adelaide jail site.
Yep.
The first sheriff, whose name was?
Hang on, let me think of this. Yeah, I'll get this. Go on, keep reading. I know
Well,
him.
his name is the next thing I'll keep reading.
Oh, okay. Read on.
Okay, Samuel Smart.
Oh, Sam Smart. Yeah, Sam Smart. But what about the
I'm coming.
You're coming to the story about what happened to Sam Smart?
Yes.
Yeah.
He was attacked
Yeah.
and wounded during a robbery
Yep.
that led to one of the offenders, Michael McGee, becoming the first person hanged in South Australia.
Exactly.
May the 2nd, 1838.
And it was out in the parklands. They picked a big old gum tree, and it was a disaster.
Oh.
Yeah, because
that I didn't know.
we didn't have a proper executioner because we didn't need one, did we? There wasn't going to be any.
I think using a gum tree is a bit of a hint. You're possibly not the best.
Right, so we've
best
slung
group
the
of
loop.
executioners.
The rope's gone over a big old branch. It's down. It's probably not there anymore, but it was down somewhere between the weir and Colonel Light and the statue. Down on where the golf club is.
Pinky Flat.
Yeah, maybe a little further inland, but about that area. Yeah. So they get a cook from the South Australian company. Says, "Oh yeah, I'll do it." He organises. Yeah,
cook.
he made a very bad hangman, and so he's got a horse and cart to stick this bloke on.
Yes.
Yeah,
I shouldn't laugh.
No, you shouldn't. He gives the horse a bit of a tap, and the horse just walks away. Oh well, now begins the problem. McGee grabs hold of the rope and hangs onto it as the horse goes, and there he is hanging there, yelling blue murder. Help! Help!
They didn't clue out you meant to tie their hands behind their back.
No, and then
came later.
fix the loop,
Oh,
you know,
dear.
get it right and all that stuff. So he's yelling, and the cook nicks off. They had to find him, get him back. 500 people attend. It's a public hanging, of course, as you did in those days.
Yeah, it's like a fringe afternoon.
Absolutely, free show. And so they're all getting a bit upset. They're saying to the Marines, shoot him! And then they get the hangman back. And how does he do it? He runs at McGee, grabs him round the knees and gives him a yank and hangs on until the poor bugger gasps his last.
That's pretty involved, personal, upfront style of execution.
Yeah.
Yeah. So McGee, who shot the sheriff, as you say, in fact, in our show, we introduced that, Mr. McGee. How do you put? I shot the sheriff. But McGee is, it's a really nasty part of our history.
I shot the sheriff, but the cook did not let me go free.
Oh, very good.
There you go.
Yeah, and we had public hangings outside the Adelaide jail, outside that lovely big wooden, those doors in there. We had public hangings until the 1850s. The last one, they reckon there were 2,000 or 3,000 people turned up of a Sunday morning for a picnic.
Is that one of the good reasons that we have TV, as you don't need that anymore?
I think that was before SANFL took off, really. And they were still sort of looking for some sort of
seriously,
entertainment on Saturday afternoon.
To both of you, is there something in our psyche that would, if given the opportunity, still be attracted to that?
Oh, hell
today?
yeah.
Oh, I've always had the theory that if you brought it back in Victoria Square, there'd be a good
Yeah.
crowd.
Yeah.
I mean, I'd say
Yeah.
that with great sadness, but
Yeah.
I reckon it's true.
I think if you had the option of having, say, prisoners fight it out in Adelaide Oval, you would pack it completely, even in this day and age, just for the thrill of the spectacle. There would not be an empty seat left
And
in this day and age.
The reason I ask that is it's easy, it's tempting when we look at history to think those people back then, so simple, so base, so primitive. And you know what? There's
Thin veneer of civilization.
Things don't change much.
isn't there? All right. So you passed the test.
Right.
Not
Good.
only with flying colours, you actually taught me more about the topic than I'd even planned to ask you.
Well, there's a great book, by the way. I should plug the fact that there's a terrific book about the first 15 years of the Adelaide jail. And I'll have to ad-lib my way to remembering what it's called.
I'd like to think it's a really thin book.
No, well, it was based on. It was beautifully written because it was based on the diary of the governor of the jail, Ashton's Hotel. Governor Ashton was his name. They called it Ashton's Hotel. He was actually quite a liberal-minded man and was very concerned about treatment of women, very concerned about the mentally ill. Had no other means of. We didn't have anything. And he was worried about that. And so she found the diary in the state records. One of those amazing stories where it had been catalogued in a different direction, so no one knew it was the diary. She thinks this is it. And she's surrounded it with the way in which South Australia was growing over those years and what else was happening around. So, for instance, the jail's there, and just up the road is Buffalo Row, for instance, where people were just setting up houses before they could get a proper acre or a proper anything from Lightspan. He's running around with a wheelbarrow surveying the joint, and so they're just camping. So she surrounds it with that. It's a lovely story. Wakefield Press, and it's called what did they tell it? Say it was Ashton's Hotel.
Now, just before we go any further, you've mentioned your Fringe show a couple of times. I was going to talk about it much more later, and we still will come back to it. What was the Fringe show called?
It was called The Horrible History of Adelaide.
And it was you and
Karen Bailey, who's a brilliant piano player, and he was the glue, the musical glue. So he sang a lot, and well, it was terrific fun. It will return.
That's my next question. This coming Fringe?
It'll be back. In fact, even before that, down at the Star Theatre, Theatre 62, call it what you like, on Sir Donald Bradman Drive.
Yes.
The Back-to-Back Festival in October. We'll do a couple of shows.
Awesome.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to it.
Yeah, I'd like to come along and see that.
Yeah,
That'd be
do it.
good. I could open for you because I'm doing stand-up comedy now. I'll do a 5-minute opening.
Which is one of the reasons why you're moving on, isn't it?
Yeah,
That's terrific.
Yes.
It's really opening up, doing more of it, getting right into it.
Opening up a history show with some tragedy is probably quite a good way to go as well.
See, that's what I'll miss about Nigel.
So supportive.
My self-esteem. However, my first official gig is on September 11, so that's ominous.
Is it in Adelaide?
Here in Adelaide.
Oh, we're going to come.
Yes,
Yeah.
at the Cranker.
Cranker,
Comedy,
yeah.
Tuesday
Yeah.
nights. Yes. Now, however, I've got to move on. There have been some rather drastic changes to what Adelaide looks like, especially in the West End. I mean, the tram tracks is I'm actually making lots of changes to us at the moment. But in the West End, Nigel even shared recently the cheese grater building. You did an artistic
No, that
shot
wasn't
of
the cheese grater. That was that wasn't Samry. That was the Adelaide University Medical Centre down the road.
Just the pointy one.
Yeah, the pointy one. What's it? Flatiron. It's a Flatiron style.
It is a flat.
Yeah, it's a Flatiron
There
building.
you go. It's a Flatiron.
Yeah.
It's even pointier than the Flatiron.
It is
Flatiron.
pointier than a normal Flatiron. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, so I'll go back to my question.
Yeah.
So,
No, don't let us interrupt you.
Yeah.
But we just did.
so do you remember a time of such sudden, dramatic change sweeping through Adelaide? Because it seems to have happened in the wink of an eye. The new RA and all those buildings along there, out of the blue, the West End campuses have gone nuts. What do you think? Because you've got an eye for heritage and for the shape of things. First of all, your reaction, and secondly, the pace. Or is it just that I don't go down there enough, and every time I go down there, it's like a boom, something else has appeared?
I think it's partly the geography of it. It was railway yards, and even
Yeah.
before that, it was the slaughter yards, and before that, it was Colonel Light's Parkmans. So we've had a view of it since the first tents went up. It's been flat and looking down to the Torrens. And that area has had a massive transformation in a decade. And so I think that's why it looks like perhaps the biggest change that Adelaide has seen ever.
Because it was normally flat, whereas
Yeah.
other buildings come and go and they're sort of
Yeah.
blending
So-
in.
That was always really low. Like anywhere when you're walking along North Terrace looking out
Yeah.
north, there wasn't a lot to block your field of
No,
view from
no.
the cathedral or anything in North Adelaide.
No, so I think that's one of the reasons. It's also that it's so prominent from so many angles that you just see the change in the skyline. Even if you're by the city bridge, for instance, you look down there, what are all those new buildings? Straight down the Torrens is a totally new eye line past the rotunda. The other reason is that I think some of the other big development eras were more scattered. The University of Adelaide, in its own right, for instance, has put up a lot of buildings, but they tend to be more like 6 or 8, not higher.
And it's sort of one at a time as well.
And one at a time,
Yeah.
and all down on the flat there, and all surrounded by trees and other buildings, so you don't get this bam effect. So it is certainly the most dramatic visual change to our city skyline since probably the first 200-footer went up, which was number 1 King William Street. It's the one diagonally opposite Government House.
The one where Jamie had his...
No, that's
over the road.
Over the road from that.
Where the bank is.
The bank, it used to have the Gresham Hotel on the corner.
Okay.
And when that was transformed into a 200-footer, it was the first of our buildings that went more than 12 stories. It went to 20 stories. And so we went, whoa, that's a big building. So I reckon that was the big hit, the last big hit I can remember. But it is dramatic, isn't it?
What do you think of that boulevard now? That North Terrace down the West End?
I don't mind it, actually. I'm still learning to adjust to the sheer length of the Royal Adelaide Hospital, and I gather that might be one of its internal issues, that it's such a long way, you need a bike. But I love the cheese grater. I love Samri as a really bold piece of contemporary architecture, and I like the Flatiron. I like the University of Adelaide site. They've even dressed it up at night. The one next to it, which is University of South Australia, which crams up against the bridge, I think... Well, first it does cram a bit up to the bridge.
You can actually walk from the bridge into it. There's actually a walkway goes from the bridge into like the second floor or something. Yeah, I noticed that the other day. I'm like, oh wow,
But they opened up a hole in the fence.
there's actually a hole in the fence to walk from the bridge into the building.
That's a good idea.
'Cause I thought it was close, but it's super
Generally,
close.
I like the sense of it. And is there another Samri to come up? I think there is, isn't there? Samri 2? I've got room.
There is some other building coming up because I was looking at the Google Earth today, and I noticed there still is a gap on the western side or something.
Oh, well, if you go far enough down, that's where the controversial women's, was it the women's and children's, or was it the women's, or neither? That's where
the next hospital.
The next hospital would go right into the corner down towards the 30 barracks.
Yeah.
Okay, so you've mentioned that. I'm going to jump to a question that comes from one of our dear listeners, Andrea Ferguson. She is a fervent listener to us, does a lot of travelling around the state. She's a speech pathologist, and she has a lot of time in the car and listens to our beautiful speech.
Cool.
And cries.
It's one of these years.
Yeah.
So she touches on this. So here's her two-parter. How does Keith see the future of SA? There's a simple question for you. And there was talk of moving the Women and Children's Hospital towards the Adelaide Jail.
Yes.
How can you reconcile keeping history with moving into the future?
Yeah, it's an excellent question. It is one of the tasks of the Heritage Council, where I've just taken on being the chair in April, and that idea of maintaining the old, which we value, and still moving forward, I don't see it as actually an unsolvable conundrum at all, but it does require care, and it requires some probably better thinking than we've had in the last 10 or 20. It goes in waves. Heritage legislation came in 40 years ago in July of this year.
Oh, 40.
And that was because we were knocking them down. The South Australian Hotel is fondly remembered by an older generation, and even a younger generation looks at it and says, wow, we knocked that down, a 3-storey building with beautiful lace verandas and all that, directly opposite Parliament House. We knocked down a massive building on North Terrace called the Exhibition Building, built in the 1880s to be for the Great International Exhibition, and it stayed until 1961 when Bouncy came, and they weren't the only ones. So there was this growing, hang on, something's got to stop here. And everything stopped at what we now call Edmund Wright House, which was the old Bank of South Australia, built in the 1880s. Probably the most elaborate building that we ever put up. And it was going to go.
Really?
The wrecking ball was almost... Well, I think it was booked because it went down... When we talk about the 11th hour, we're talking days. We're not talking weeks. And Don Dunstan changed his mind. He'd held out and thought, no, it's got to go. That's the way it is, and suddenly thought, no, hang on, the groundswell is massive here. And so it was saved. It was saved not only as a building, but also because it represented one of our great early architects, Edmund Wright. There ought to be an Edmund Wright trail. In fact, it's one of the things I must resurrect. I did it once many years ago on postcards. You start at the GPO, had a hand in it. He was one of the winning competition designers. Mm-hmm. Adelaide Town Hall, he did that. And then down the street, there's a building on the corner of Curry and King William, which is now a gymnasium, another great old bank. That is one of his. Then there's Edmund Wright House, he designed that, and he did Parliament House along with another architect. That's not a bad little list, is it?
That's not bad at all.
Thus, Edmund Wright House, very important to save. We do it, and we do have this sort of surge of ideas that heritage is important. We love our old buildings and they're part of our character and part of our sense of Adelaide. But every now and then we waft off, and it's partly due to economic pressure. People start getting toey. We haven't got enough buildings going up, not enough building going on, not enough cranes to count. And so you tend to say, well, we'll let a few things slip. We'll let a couple of design rules slip. We'll maybe make it a bit easier for them. And then you find yourself, as we are now, thinking, hang on a second. The Christian Science building, the old church,
yes.
Diagonally opposite the old RAH, you know what's going to be there?
No.
A 30-storey student tower. 30 stories. Well, how did that happen? That's not right for North Terrace. It is, because the height rules were changed, open sky almost, and it's just too late. It's not a heritage listed building, but it just doesn't seem right for the character of that part. Get the Lord Mayor going about that. He says there should be a special character development zone, not only on the institutional side, where naturally we're not going to knock down the art gallery, but on the other side of North Terrace, where we actually get that side to speak to the cultural boulevard. Now, those sorts of things, I think people in South Australia say, yeah, that makes sense, but it's not in our planning at the moment. So we're going through a stage where we've got to study, and in fact it's going to be a very interesting and controversial debate over the next year or two, as we try to blend getting more of the new, great idea, but keeping more of the old.
Take a sip of your Shiraz while
Right.
I do this question, because there's some Grenache waiting for your glass, and
Oh,
you have
love
mentioned you're a
Grenache.
Grenache man too. In relation to this, it's one thing for you to speak common sense, like you have just then, now, because you're among friends, we understand nuance, and we can find a way forward. Is there an appetite in the media space for you to speak like that? Because my gut fear is it's easy for the commentator or journalist or opposite number to say, yep, typical Adelaide voices, they don't want anything new, they shout it down, we'll never get anything done in this town. It's like, it's so blunt, the tools that come against this conversation.
There is a journo or two who takes that approach, and I think it's very unfortunate. They just wheel off the same old thing. Oh, yeah, bloody North Adelaide society. Yeah, you live in North Adelaide. It's got nothing to do with that. It's got nothing to do with the fact that I've got white hair. It's to do with the future. And so you're right. There are a couple of avenues where the conversation might be difficult, but I wouldn't give up on it. There are plenty of people who do want to hear. The Tizer gave me a column the other day where I reiterated a fun sort of heritage tour on a bicycle, which I did literally take out on the 40th anniversary, I think it was. Sort of say, let's have a look, and we found all sorts of objects, and people that I reckon every one of them, people say, yeah, of course, the old chimney back in Halifax Street.
The disintegrator.
Yeah, exactly. It used to be part of the great incinerator. Yeah.
And it was called the disintegrator.
Yeah.
'Cause it transferred everything into nothing. Well, actually, it's smoke, but ash and smoke.
That's there. That's where the Greek restaurant is. And people say, yeah, of course, that's all part of the fabric, And then a bit further down, you get to the Victoria Park old grandstand. He said, well, no, of course you wouldn't knock that down. It's on the list. So we've got a grandstand and a chimney. Then you go a bit further down on your treadly down the side of the parklands, and you can get a morgue into your list. The little morgue from the lunatic asylum that used to run along the sort of by the National Wine Centre there. It's the gardener's shed now, but it is the morgue, and it's on the list. And then there's the youngest on our list, which is the Silver Pasty, the Bicentennial Conservatory designed by Guy Morand. It's on the national list too. So just in that little burst there, you have the variety, and every one of them people say, yes, of course. So I reckon it's about us telling the stories right and encouraging people to know what's there.
So we had Don Dunstan step in to save the bank. We had you voicing things. We've got some people saying stop, and things got really quickly. What is the dynamic that leaves us with a patch of dirt in North Adelaide where Le Cornu used to stand? How has that become a black hole of development?
That's sheer economics and a sheer lack of authority for anybody to do anything about it.
Right.
There have been so many permissions given to at least 3 developers, and they haven't built. Right. So they had the right to build, but the economics weren't right. They said, no, I don't want to do it now. And that's always been the answer. You say, well, eventually what happened, it was interesting that this happened once before. Eventually, after all these years, the City Council said, bugger it, we're going to buy it. And they bought it back so they can now hand it on with a master plan attached to developers and say, off you go. And this time I think it will happen because there'll be a meeting of the minds. It won't be as big. The great difficulty is that once you start paying too much for a patch of land, you end up having to put too much on it against the guidelines, and that's exactly what the last owner did.
It'll become an economic decision rather than any other decision. And it's like, well, wait a sec, for this amount of money, I have to get this level of return.
Yep.
And so therefore, to get that amount of money, you need X square metres. On this size block, that corresponds to X number of floors. And so that's what I'm simply forced to do, yada, yada.
And of course, that beginning price, one of the problems is that some people in the development industry will pay the price hoping they'll be able to crack the rules.
Yeah.
We'll be able to ride over the rules because, well, look what happens. The dirt is only worth what you can put on it. And so if they take that risk, well, I say eventually we should have taken it off years ago, and the council has. Gut
feeling, a couple of weeks ago with Don Violi and his wife, we were talking about the fact that there used to be markets Saturday morning on Melbourne Street, I think, in North Adelaide.
Yep.
Imagine that space being left as a common where people could come together and use it as a communal space. Interesting? Or do we really need to see a built...
You mean Melbourne Street now?
Yeah, I mean
the
now.
Corny site.
Still at Le Cornu.
Yeah,
but
look, it unfortunately, for the city council, they spent 43 million on it. So
it's a lot of money for a
very expensive park. Very expensive. So they'll need to hand it back. They might not get all their money back, I think, and that'll cause angst. But they might.
They've primed the pump.
But they might get a solution, and a good one. The other one, which we love, and which required the same technique, was the Adelaide's East End Market. In the 1980s, it was going to be all boring office towers, and it actually took the recession, the Great Recession, to knock that over. The company sold it back to the government, sold the whole thing back to the government, and again, a master plan was put in place, and look what we've got. We love it. We love that heritage area. There's new stuff inside. There's a mixture. It's alive. It's well. But it took a big decision.
Now, you've got a chance for one more sip, so there's room for your Grenache, because I've got a long question here. It's from Nadia, my wife, who throughout the last 5 years has shouldered the load at home while I've been gallivanting around, covering stories and doing what we do here. So she had a great question, and I want to pick up on the fact that you talked about when you're talking about preserving things, you're not talking about the past, you're talking about the future.
Yes.
That's the prelude for this question.
Good.
How do we better engage the next generation in heritage and South Australian history? And how do we ensure the history that we learn covers all the stories of the time, the different perspectives, her story as well as his story?
Yeah, and the Ghana story.
And the Ghana, absolutely.
Yeah.
Your thoughts on that?
We're going to do more about that. We have to do more of that. and we need to engage young people at both formal and informal education level. One of the nicest examples of a building that is now adapted and reused is actually all about at least young people who are at drinking age. I went the other night before a meeting in the town hall about heritage. I called in there to sort of read my notes and prepare my ad-libs, and I was in Electra House, which is on King William Street, directly opposite the town hall. Right. It used to be an insurance building, was built in the early 1900s, but in the last 20 years at least, if not longer, it's just sat there wanting love. And it took good architects, a good building owner, and a lot of good work with the City Council's heritage people and a lot of give and take to come up with what is now a fantastic area. The old insurance chamber or banking chamber is a big bar and a really classy bar. They've been able to build on the side, and there's more bar there. Then there's a wonderful restaurant on the first floor, and the fabric of the building is really very much in place, including the old wooden lift. So there's the transformation. It can be done, and it can be a place where 25-year-olds go and have a cocktail.
Yes, and you went there not for the bar, but to read your notes, you said.
Well, funny, I reckon they were thinking, that bloke drinking the lemonade with the white hair in the corner, what is he doing here?
All right. Now, you talked about the precinct on North Terrace, where you've got all the heritage... the
cultural boulevard.
Yes. We've got two little girls, 10 and 8. Love the museum. If I said to them every day, let's go to the museum, they'd say yes. What's an alternative thing that I could take them to that's of a similar ilk? What would be your next choice? Something maybe a little bit unexpected, or just something might be completely orthodox that we haven't thought of because the power that draws us towards the museum.
You're going to go back there.
Yeah.
You're going to go back there, aren't you? I mean, I'd go to some of the kids' activities at the art gallery next door.
Yes,
they do great stuff on Saturday morning. So you're into that?
Yeah.
Okay.
We've done that.
What about swinging it to one of the Botanic Gardens and going to Mount Lofty, say, the Mount Lofty Botanic Garden, going for a walk up through the gullies.
Or going to the Botanic Garden in town with the... what's it?
The Museum of Economic Botany.
Museum of Economic Botany.
Yeah, built by Richard Schomburg, the great director.
Economic botany. These plants you can grow for money.
That's the basic.
Well, that was the whole basis of it.
That was what it's all about. Yeah.
And in fact, the Friends of Botanic Garden, they do lots of friendly guide stuff, particularly in school holidays. They get into all sorts of secret trails and so on, because you can walk through an old gum tree which was used as a shelter by the Ghana people. You can walk through, and it's hundreds of years old. Kids love going through a gum tree.
Can you do that?
Yeah, in our Botanic Garden, but it's on one of the sawdust paths. It's not in the main drag.
I've got to find that.
Yeah, you got to do it.
Because our family is related to the Herbig family from Springton.
Yep,
yeah,
who lived in a tree as well.
Tree.
The Herbig gum tree, which is still alive, and do you know how old it is?
No.
I was only thinking of it the other day, because it's a picture. It's one of 25 that are currently on the website for Heritage SA, and you can go in and vote. We're looking for the sort of community choice.
The most iconic gum tree.
Well, no, it's one of 25 pictures on heritage items, and of course Herbig's gum tree is one of them. So there's one, for instance, of the rather formidable entrance to Z Ward at Parkside, or Glenside as it became called,
where we've recorded a podcast.
Yep.
Oh, did you inside?
At night.
Inside at
With
night.
Alison Oborn.
Yep.
Oh, yeah.
Ghost tours.
Yeah. Well, in fact, that's another picture inside there. What have we got? Just there's a lighthouse.
Okay. And where do we
just go on to Heritage SA.
Yes.
And just put in Heritage Snaps. Just Google Heritage Snaps. It'll pop up. You get to vote, and you might win a prize because you voted, but you will help choose the Viewer's Choice Prize.
Awesome. I wouldn't mind a little taste of Heritage Snaps if you ever let a bottle.
So one thing that is little known about the Botanic Gardens is it's one of 3 places in South Australia that has tree rings.
Tree rings.
Trees planted specifically in a circle shape.
Really?
There's one in Botanic Garden. Where are the other 2 places?
Do you know?
I do know where they are.
Do you know where they are? Okay. Tell us.
One of them is at Gumaraka, where just opposite the Baptist Church, where their well used to be.
Yep.
And after an earthquake in, I think it was like 1898, their well ran dry and the water drained from it. And the third site is in Kaiserstuhl National Park, up on the eastern side of the Barossa. Inside of that is the third tree ring in South Australia.
And why?
Who planted that?
I don't know who planted that one.
German settlers, maybe?
I don't know, but they're quite unique and rare. And there's one in Botanic there, which is fine. That's we'd expect to find a tree ring.
Where is that one in the Botanic Garden?
It's when you're going down the main drag, walking north.
Yep.
And there's that big boulevard.
Yep.
With the plane trees, I think, is it, on either side of it?
Yeah, I think they
And,
are.
and
Yep.
just off to the right is that archway with all the grevilleas growing over it, something, the flowering vines.
Mm-hmm.
You come down a patch of grass, and there's about 8 trees in a perfect
right.
circle.
Yeah.
What's the significance of planting trees in a circle in one sentence? Nigel.
It's a cultural thing that came out of England to do with sort of the pagan history as well.
Oh, right.
So they're seen as a thing sort of spiritual significance.
Okay.
So they're created potentially for that reason, but then people who plant them won't necessarily say that.
We should come together to do a reunion episode on a solstice evening in the nude under one of the ring trees.
Gamaraka.
I think
First
Gummaraka would be
thing-
safer than
Yeah,
Botanic Garden.
No.
Yeah.
Okay. Gamaraka.
Gummaraka. It's actually they were planted quite close together,
Yeah.
so that
The circle's only about 15 foot across or so.
okay.
Yeah.
so these thick trees and the poor old baptismal bit sort of just sunken into the ground.
Well,
hasn't
it drained. There was an earthquake in South Australia, and the water the next morning had drained out of their baptismal pond, and so it was seen as a sign from God.
Well, there you go.
Move on.
We're going to pause to get ready for Is It News. And Keith, something we've done lately with our guests is award them an Adelaide Show pen.
Oh wow, these are going to be like heirlooms.
Well, I hope they will be one
They're
day.
big collectors' items
Oh
now, actually.
yeah.
Yeah, they will be.
Yeah, I'll put that on Gumtree next week.
No, Sharon Sutton's already got hers up, so the price will be down.
Yeah.
So anyway, thank you for all your interviews thus far. Of course, they continue in just a moment when we put you through the ringer of Is It News. Are you ready?
No, I was ready.
Beautiful. Okay, we're almost done. We just got Is It News, intro to 100 Weeks Ago and the music and the song, all very short, and then we're done for our show tonight. Okay.
Anyone need wine top-ups?
So yes, this is beautiful. I'll have one more little top up of this to leave a little
Grenache?
bit of room for
Oh, the
some.
Grenache is good, isn't it? But I like Fox Creek generally.
So what we'll do at the beginning of Visit News, do your intro, and then I'll just quickly we'll draw our attention to this Fox Creek.
Yep.
What year is that?
2016.
2000.
Grenache used to be overwatered, and as a result, we made lousy Grenache when I was a boy. I used to think, why would you drink Grenache? It's a waste of bloody time. But then somebody twigged, you got to
Gotta hurt it.
dry grow it, yeah,
Yeah.
and you got to have old vines. And so now there's some of the best, I think some of the best red on the market, and it's much more reasonably priced than Shiraz.
Yeah.
Are you ready to go?
Yep. Do you want to use the? You can have a go at using the
Yeah,
clapperboard.
Oh, wow.
Here we go.
I'll have the clap.
Do you want to try the bigger one?
There's a bigger
Yeah.
clapperboard.
Oh, now you're
here we
jealous.
go. Steve needs assistant with something a bit bigger. Here's a clapperboard.
This is the proper clapperboard, this one.
Um,
I think this was used for Sunday Too Far Away.
Bad
See,
boy.
that's so old that most people say, what the hell are you talking about?
Bad boy, Bubby.
I was a member because I worked for Hungary's national broadcaster in Budapest for 2 years, and I was part of the Australian Hungarian Business Association, and I spoke to the Australian Film Corporation and got the reels of that movie sent out for a film night. We had Australian pies, we showed the movie, and it was amazing. The lemon essence, the whole bit.
In Budapest, you did this?
In Budapest.
Get out.
In the early 90s.
Fantastic.
Yeah, all for free. They covered all the costs of doing that for a cultural. It was good fun. And then Don Violi, we had on a couple of weeks ago, he did the hair for that movie. Yeah. All right, one more sip of this, then we'll start.
That's nice.
If anyone is still persevering at home, which is unlikely, but if you are, we're about to do just the intros. Actually, Is It News, and then 2 quick intros, and we're done with our main interview tonight. Then we shoot a quick video to promote. the next week, the show, which goes out Wednesday morning. The show comes out Wednesday night, etc. So we're about to clap this in.
Yep.
We're going to do a quick taste of this. What year was this again?
16.
Ah. Okay, beautiful. Ready?
Yep.
Here we go. Oh, I wonder if David's... Oh, he is watching. David, we're saving some lamingtons for you. And there's
Oh, what?
Does David drink wine?
No, he doesn't, but I do.
You do?
I
Okay.
I
Okay,
do.
we'll save some for you. Okay, here we go. Dave, does he lamingtons?
He does. I took one out to him before.
Oh, lovely.
That was very generous of you, just the one.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right, here we go. Oh,
Good
this
work.
would be such a good photo, too.
Yeah.
We're going to get a...
It's very kind lighting.
Ready?
For you as well.
Here we go. Ow! No, sorry, that was a joke. Here we go. Ready? Serious.
Which brings us to Is It News? The very last Is It News? And Steve gave me... Yeah, what's
Just
that?
before you start,
Yeah.
because we've got some extra South Australian wine tonight, I must send a special cheerio to the Fox Creek people. They loved our review of their short row Shiraz. When was that? A few weeks ago.
Yep.
And they sent us some more. And what we have is a 2016 Fox Creek Grenache. And you said, Keith, that you're a Grenache man.
Oh, I'm a Grenache man because now we make it the way it ought to be made, and we have, I don't know how old the Fox Creek vines are, but we have some very old vines. We dry grow them, we don't give them any irrigation, and the flavour lifts. And we now make great Grenache by any standard, don't we? And we also mix it in, of course. The other thing I think, which is a bit underdone, but it's some of the European styles, the GSM,
Yeah.
the
Jism?
Grenache.
We
Yeah,
call
the
it
jism.
Jism.
You
call it
on
the
the show.
Yeah, we call them the Jism.
Grenache, Shiraz, and Matero.
Yep.
What a lovely blend.
It's beautiful.
But I'm pleased they didn't put it in because this is lovely.
Because can I just say, this Fox Creek Grenache, and by the way, on my palate, the first thing I thought of is imagine me being covered in berries, particularly raspberries in the mix, and then wrapped tightly in Glad Wrap. That is what the experience of this wine is like. It's intensely wrapped around your palate, and if you're going to go, what a way to go! Seriously.
He went out wrapped in Grenache grapes.
Yep, and plastic. So, yeah.
Yeah.
Good South Australian theme there,
Why-
Steve. Good effort.
Why has Steve ever written a back label?
I did.
He actually used to.
That used to
he
be
used
my
to.
job.
He used to write back labels. Yeah.
But now he's gone
He's
completely
been-
over the top.
He's
now.
been corrupted by years of writing back labels.
I got
It was
sacked.
too much for him in the end, and his mind broke.
I think wrapping yourself in plastic and that was probably it.
With the berries is
Yeah.
particularly special.
Or being baked in a fruit laden cheesecake. That's what this is like. It's beautiful. It's mouth filling. The fruit is tight against you, and there's a very quick little snizzle of tannin just on the end of the tannin. Anyway, I'm eating into your time.
That's
because
fine.
Now you've only got 3 minutes left. Nigel.
Okay, so Steve gave me the option of any stories about South Australia, which, considering this isn't news and the South Australian story is pretty much open everything, a whole lot was put aside. That we could have looked into the horrible histories of Adelaide. However, I was thinking that our guest tonight probably knows a fair amount of Adelaide history. So it was chosen to be design in Adelaide, things we've designed.
Actually, I think Keith still has the upper hand on you because
Oh, yeah.
you've done some beautiful stuff, Keith, when you were walking through Rundle Mall and telling people, just look up.
Yeah.
Look up.
Yeah,
And I think, you know what, to go back to that question before, how do we help the next generation understand it? I think it's your bike rides. I think it's that awareness and like the feast on foot, the walking trails, anything where you're out of the super zone where you're zipping past and you take
slow
the
down.
time.
Look up.
That
I've
appreciation.
got another one for you.
Okay.
Sorry, Pat.
So you've only got 1 minute left.
University of SA Architectural Museum
Yes.
has just introduced the hashtag Cool Heritage. What a great idea.
Yeah.
Because heritage can be cool.
I think the Institute of Engineers has 4 walking trails around Adelaide looking at engineering history
Oh,
as
they're
well.
fantastic.
They've got a great little booklet you can download and it'll take you through North Adelaide and Adelaide.
You reckon engineering would be boring? The bloke Richard Venus, who's written it, is a great storyteller.
Great.
And
And
some really unusual stories that you just didn't know existed are in that. Okay, on to Is It News with Design in Adelaide. So our first story, so just to go through, 2 of these stories are true and 1 of them is fake. And they're taken from the newspapers generally in South Australia. And so, guess we have to thank, after all of our shows, the federal government for the times they do fund Trove.
Yes.
It'd be really nice for another 20 years funding so we can get the archives of South Australian newspapers, include the 60s and the 70s.
yes.
Would
And the rest of Australia.
Yeah, it would be much appreciated for that really time when Adelaide and South Australia and Australia was changing a lot. It'd be great to capture some of that in the scans.
In fact, it's imperative that they do it.
Yeah.
Just don't cut the funds to something as magical as
Yeah.
Trove, which allows us access to papers around
And
Australia.
a lot of the work is done for free because you can go online to Trove, you register, and you can spell correct the articles
Yes.
that are in it.
This is
do your
where
bit.
this is the time. 2 quick confessions. One, Nigel. Just about every week you go on and on about Trove, and I just cut it from the show.
Yeah.
But I let him have his feeling
Yeah,
on the show, so that's important.
I'm with you on Trove.
Yeah.
And
But I do
am-
warn people. I say to people, look, I'm going to tell you about this thing, but it is dangerous. It will take hours and
Yeah.
hours of your week.
You'll lose your
And
soul to
and
the thing.
I believe it's important.
Oh,
so
yeah.
I agree. But it's just always for...
Yeah.
And the other thing is, whenever we drive together, Nigel and I, he knows how to get there, but I always go, no, I'm putting it into Google. And then tonight, in the back seat, he must have been thinking, that hypocrite. Because I put it into Google, and Keith Conlon, Mr. South Australia, says, oh no, turn left instead of right, and we'll take Goodwood Road instead. And I just said, yep.
Yeah.
Got him.
Did you know that? Did you know?
I did notice that, yeah.
I'm sorry,
Yeah.
Nigel. I publicly apologise.
That's okay. We started 10 minutes late. It's fine.
Okay. All right. Let's go.
So, 3 stories, 2 are true, 1 is false. The first story, The Observer, May 1917. An unsinkable ship, Port Adelaide design. Mr. A.E. Gay, the superintendent of the Prince Alfred Sailors' Home at Port Adelaide, has for the last 2 years had under his consideration the designing of an improved type of ship, which is claimed is practically unsinkable. The submarine campaign in the early part of the war turned Mr. Gay's attention to the matter, and lately the menace of German underwater craft has introduced him to bring his design under the notice of naval authorities. The model has been inspected by a number of shipmasters and engineering experts who have seen it tested in a big tank, and it has been most favourably commented upon. Last week the model, 5 feet in length, was examined by Mr. J.B. Labbott of the Harbours Board and Mr. S. Quinn, representing the United States government. It was submerged in the experimental tank and raised to give 6 inches of freeboard in the space of 2 minutes. One of the features of the design is the possibility of reducing the visibility of the hull, and thus it is suggested the torpedo-resisting grain-carrying vessel with a low-flush whaleback bull. Other things being equal, concrete would make a particularly adaptable material for the construction of this type of vessel. An Adelaide design.
What's your gut feeling? You don't have to make your final decision now. It doesn't seem right to me.
No, I'm going with it.
You are?
I think the time is right. 1917, unsinkable vessel, the Titanic, concrete, just coming in. Monash was a pioneer of using concrete methods for construction in the first 10 or 20 years of the Australia Federation. So I'm at this stage leaning towards it.
Okay, number 2.
Story number 2. From the Chronicle, March 1954. And we have trams of unique design for Adelaide in October. The design of the new trams, which would be running in Adelaide by October, was unique in Australia, the General Manager of the Municipal Tramways Trust, Mr. J.M. Keynes, said in a Legacy Club luncheon address. It had been copied from styles developed in Switzerland and parts of Germany, he added. The new trams would have 3 doors, a double door at the back, one amidships and the other at the front, to accelerate the passenger flow. Cushions on the seats, windows for standees to look out, and special springing and stabilisers would add to the smooth running on the rails. The motors would come from England and the bodies would be made locally, said Mr. Keynes. Their speed would be 10% greater than buses and reduce operating costs and increase the comfort and convenience of passengers. The appearance of the city would be enhanced, and now the government was spending more money on roads. It was hoped the modernised tram service would attract more patronage.
If they did bring in more comfortable trams in 1954, they certainly had them out of service in the 70s when I was catching the tram with my grandma into town.
They all went. Well, every tram except the Bay tram went in 1958. They were gone. I was on the last tram to Cheltenham.
Well, you could have written a song like Jimmy Barnes.
The
The last tram to Cheltenham's almost gone.
It's like the last train to Clarksville too, isn't it?
Yes, that's right.
Yeah, I'm going for that.
You think that's true?
Yeah.
No,
Because I reckon they ran on the Bay line and they stayed on the Bay line.
Right. Were they those maroon and cream?
No, they're the
trams?
old ones. They're the heritage trams built in 1929.
Oh, so what ones are these?
These are 1954.
Oh,
Yeah.
oh, modern ones.
Yeah.
Okay. I wonder if they'd be able to turn right off. And tell me quickly, seriously. I know that. I think one of the government departments funds the Heritage Council. I don't want
Yes,
you to
that's
lose your job.
true. Yes.
But it
The
does
minister
strike.
comes from this way too.
It struck me as a non-issue about the tram turning right, but it was something that the Liberals could wedge against Labor in the lead up to the election. It was fun, and they did it very well with the stuff. Now, as John Blake on 5AA has pointed out, he's been a great student of the trams. Stefan Conlon, I think is the minister responsible, is giving himself wriggle room to get out of it by saying, well, we'll wait to see what our experts say. Any comment that doesn't jeopardise your funding?
No, it won't. I'm sure it won't, but I suspect that it will cost a bucket load for one right-hand turn.
Yep.
It'll go every other way, but not that way, and so they won't do it.
I think it took them a while to work out trams actually can go both forwards and backwards.
Get out.
And so the concept of turning left and just reversing the direction of the tram was sort of a bit of a tricky concept in the 21st century.
You mean they could go down to the North Terrace, to North Adelaide, to the Adelaide station, and then go back down towards the old R?
Apparently trams can do that.
Get out. Oh, well.
This is this is the technology we're living in this day and age.
Hey, but
it's amazing.
What about the other fact that's only just emerged, and that is that all that new bit that goes down to the festival centre and almost to the bridge will only see trams on the weekend.
I know.
Whoa.
I know. Like, if I was running my family household budget, I'd be thinking, is that a good use of my money? I'm not sure.
2 out of 7 days.
Although, to be fair, we did get some of our listeners quite upset when Nigel mentioned how ridiculous individual car ownership is, because you pay a lot of money for something that sits idle 23 hours a day.
Typically in the urban area.
Yes, so that's where we got
we've got into trouble.
We got into trouble.
Yeah.
Certainly.
You took on the car.
Yeah,
I
exactly.
took on the rural Ford Fairlane, and that didn't go down well.
Anyway,
Story number 2.
number 3.
Number 3 now.
So, story number 3 we're up to
So
now.
I've burned my bridges. I've got both of them so far true.
Yes.
Okay.
Do you want one more little
No,
tipple?
I'm good, thanks.
You're good.
The Mail, September 1939. Lavish service station. 5 roads lead to 24 filling pumps at Dulwich Enterprise. A fine design by Mr. Geo Bolton has recently completed the erection of a filling and service station at the corner of Greenhill and Victoria Avenue, Dulwich, which is claimed to be one of the most ultra-modern in the Commonwealth. An architectural construction and layout, the building is a triumph. Tiles have been profusely used and blend harmoniously with the general neatness of the entire construction. Huge Wonderlick metal ceiling verandas measuring 60 feet long each way with a span of 32 feet from the front of the building provide ample cover for cars in their filling bays. From a concave moulded rear, the wings of the main building spread fan-shaped so that from whichever angle the building is viewed, a massive effect meets the eye. 5 main roads converge on the side of the building, and the fan-shaped construction of the station tends to make a natural lead to 5 filling bays from each of the 5 roads. The tower which adorns the top of the building is fitted with 2 electric clocks, which can be read from any angle approaching the corner. Another pleasing feature is the lighting effect, involving nearly 600 feet of neon tubing installed by Ionolite. Mr. Bolton claims to be one of the originators of the drive-in service stations in Australia. His first station in Adelaide was in operation 2 years before a similar service opened in the other states.
Let me just take a drive-in service station, because normally you would walk to the service station to get your petrol, wouldn't you? And
I'm stonking now.
where is
This is Bolton's Corner. George Bolton's Corner was real. George Bolton's Corner was on the corner.
Where's
of-
Victoria Avenue? Which one is
No,
it?
no, it's on the corner of Fullerton Road, and is that what you said?
It's on. It was 5 roads come together, and the roads are
Yes.
Yeah,
Fullerton Road,
yeah.
Yes.
Green Hill Road,
Yeah.
Yes.
and
What's the other one?
Victoria Avenue, which
Where's-
isn't there anymore.
Ah,
It used to cut through the parklands from the city, cut down to the corner,
diagonally up through the creek
diagonally
there.
down past the creek.
See, so that's true, because I remember Bolton's Corner. Yeah,
So
but
where would it be now? What would it be replaced?
There's a new building on the corner there.
yeah,
It's
a
on
very
the northeast. It's on the
nondescript building.
northeast corner of Green Hill and Fulton.
Yeah,
Where the Glenside property is.
no,
on the
they're
other
not-
side.
on the northern side.
Yeah, on the
of-
northern side of that road.
Oh, north, yeah, the other
So there's a
side.
new little
Yeah.
office building or something there.
Yeah, that's it. That's got to
The
be
old
true.
Bolton's got demolished, presumably.
Yeah, that's got to be true.
Okay, so
Is it
that
all
was-
true?
Well, it could be. I think it's all true. The only one that's now falling down for me is possibly the Unsinkable. That's the only one that I think I might have to give up on.
Can you imagine making a submarine out of concrete, even in 1917?
A ship. No, it wasn't. It was a ship, wasn't it? It was going
It
to be.
says unsinkable ship, but it seemed to hint at designs learnt from submarines.
Yeah. No, I'm going to chuck that.
So we both think that's the fake?
Yeah, we do.
So, Keith Conlon, for the record, we're about to go down together.
Righto.
All right.
You're going to
So,
sink with the ship.
weigh anchor, Nigel.
So way anchor we'll start on the last story. In
Way
fact, the Geo Bolton corner was a true story. There used to be 5 roads used to come together there. And that was in true, so complete with its 600 feet of neon tubing, 14 pumps, and Wonderlink metal ceilings above the shelters, the filling bays to keep the weather off your automobile as you were filling it.
The only one that sort of matched that was the one that was on the corner of South Road and Anzac Highway, and they've taken that up to the National Motor Museum.
Yeah, it's in there.
It's in there.
Yeah.
Because
Oh,
that
right.
reminded me of the tin ceilings.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. And it had clocks, you could see it, because no one had a wristwatch in
Didn't have
1911.
clocks. The other famous one was down towards Flinders Uni at South Road and
Oh, yeah.
Dawes Road, which is on the corner. It was an old. Was it what's along the sheep? Was that
Golden Fleece.
Golden
there was
Fleece.
We had a
there used to
Golden
be
Mile.
Yeah,
It was called the Golden Mile because
Yeah.
that was outside the city limits. On the northern side of South Road, you couldn't open your servo 24 hours a day. On that side, the Darlington Hills side, you could.
Yeah.
And so you
Okay.
had Golden Fleece, you had
would have been a
you had,
Caltex
you had
would have been.
Neptune.
Yeah, yep.
Oh, Neptune.
Yeah.
Not many Neptunes anymore.
No, because
mum.
Yeah.
they got caught putting salt water in the petrol. No, they didn't. But near that, on the road, that Sturt Road, I think, comes back down from there to Marion Shopping Centre, is the ambulance station. And that's where I was a cadet, St John's cadet, for about 6 months. I'd go along to learn first aid, primarily because I could put, I think, 10 cents in the machine and get a Fanta at half time.
Wow.
And then
That's living.
Yeah, exactly. That is living. That is living. And it's one of those machines where you had to then pick the top off it. You know, they had the bottle opener in the machine. It was fantastic. Then, if you got some money back, if you left the bottle there, it was.
Oh, mate.
And I never
old
did
days.
1 day's service for the St John's Cadet, but I went to all the training.
Yeah.
Anyway,
Drank
I
a lot of
digress.
Fanta.
Next,
So
bring us out of
that
mystery.
leaves us between story number 1, the unsinkable ship from a Port Adelaide design, a concrete ship,
Yeah.
and the trams of unique design for Adelaide in October. And the false story is actually the trams of unique design.
Oh,
no.
not the trams.
The trams indeed.
We did build modern trams.
No, we didn't. We made new buses.
Oh, yeah, but that was
Because
in
the
50.
story was about getting rid of the trams, which were taking up space on the roads, and replacing them with good, efficient buses.
Excuse me. Can I just say, for the record, we can play the tape back. I said if they got new ones comfortable in 1954, then they certainly weren't in service when I was catching the tram, and so I was on to it. Because there was no such thing as a comfortable tram.
We've got two kinds of tram running down the bay. So we introduced new trams sometime, maybe later.
It wasn't this year.
No.
They were introducing new buses
mate,
to get rid of those silly old trams. And
Okay.
basically, this was part of the Playford plan in conjunction with
Yes.
General Motors of making sure there was
Yeah.
plenty of room for the
Not
new
to mention
up
the
and
new oil
coming
refinery.
patronage of motor vehicles upon the road.
Nigel, thank you. It's been an absolute
Thank you.
pleasure
Yeah.
playing Is It
Yeah.
News?
I think that's a fitting story to end with as well.
Much as I'm a broken man.
And me too, because I booked Keith to be here. Beautiful. 2 quick intros and we're done with the recording. We're almost there. Do you need another Lamington, Kirsty? Come and quickly grab
Kirsty.
one in between segments. Yeah.
Yeah.
We might see Kirsty on camera.
Leaves us 3.
Just a hand.
Just a
you know
hand.
how to work your
hand.
studio, don't you?
Yes.
All right. Let's do
Do
this.
you want to have
No, you
Yeah,
guys
I'm
go
going to
for
do
it.
it.
Yeah.
I'm going to do it.
Okay, clap us in because I've already choked tonight. So let's do 100 weeks ago. We're opening up the vault, going back 100 weeks to a night we spent doing live streaming theatre at Michael Allen Productions up in Blackwood. And what I love about what he's done, the back of his house, a bit like Studio 91 where we are tonight, is an amazing setup. Lights, camera and everything. And what he's been trying to nurture is artists booking every month to come on I think a Saturday night, I think it was, or a Sunday night, and put some sort of experimental theatre out there and stream it so that people could pay $10 or $5 or whatever and watch theatre from anywhere in the world to give a different expression to the form. Now, while you're here, Keith, I just want us to reflect briefly on how what Michael Allen's doing fits into the culture that has given us the Adelaide Fringe. Isn't there something experimental that bonds those two pursuits?
Yeah, there is, isn't there? Because we, from the moment the festival began in 1960,
Yes.
there was a thought that it was wonderful to have, but it was terribly proper. And so some mad university review types and writers put on the Fringe. They just did a comedy sketch review right from the beginning onwards, long before we called it The Fringe.
So even in 1960?
Yep, 60, 62, 64 and so on, there were these wonderful shows. I remember going to them thinking, wow, this is fantastic. They were based in a way on the ideas from the Cambridge and the Oxford reviews that were sort of swinging into gear too.
So is Law Society?
No,
behind it?
no, this was these
pre
were
that
people
group
who
of
were
people?
advertising. They wrote for advertising agencies. They were actors. They were people who just had had that sort of sense of, hey, we've got to take the mickey out of this a bit,
So
and they
why-
did it so well.
Why did you go to see some of that when there was the festival on
Yeah,
offer?
I did a bit of both.
Ah, okay.
Yeah, I went to the Elder Hall in 1960 to see a collector of folk songs and so on, and thought, wow, so folk music was a bit early, but that was a kind of a thing that took off. And,
Very earnest.
yeah, and but it was interesting because it was about Australian ballads
Okay.
and about the old, the Shearers songs and so on. That was nice. But meanwhile, out in the old YWC Hall at Pennington Terrace in North Adelaide, they put on this fantastic show. Lois Ramsey was in it. Remember the great actor, wonderful actor who did Prisoner for many years, and so there were these types who just did it, and some of them, in fact, one of them ended up as a judge later. Yeah, so there were all sorts of types.
Right.
But great writing, great fun sketches, and taking the mickey out of Adelaide, as we love to do.
Now, just to assuage my guilt for having mentioned that you are given to hammy acting, what was your first Fringe performance? Or was it pre-Fringe?
Probably, yeah. I mean, I mucked around with student theatre and so on, and university reviews, and they were big in those days. We'd have 40 people on stage, another 40 people working on it, and we'd fill the Union Hall, 500 people. We'd almost fill it for 8 nights in a row. So we'd get
Wow.
3,500 people going, and so it was insane fun. And so we were doing that in the I played in the band in 62, so I took my school cap off and went into the pit orchestra and played and thought, wow, this is it, Bohemia, here we come.
Yeah.
And I started doing that stuff in 62 and then kept going and then had to sort of lay off it for a while. But I did a couple of late night reviews in the late 60s, professional late night reviews in the Sheridan Theatre.
Yeah.
With terrific actors and I mean, I still want to be an actor when I grow up. Yes. A comic actor, like you.
All right. So let's go back and have a listen to Michael talking about why he was doing what he's doing. Beautiful. Now, just for those of you watching from home, we cut that in post-production. Okay.
Well, I eat my Lamington.
Oh, now, one last thing we do need to do. Can you just crack open that poplars and just have a little sip, just a tiny sip, and I'm just going to rinse the glass with a little bit of water. Like my dad, who was an Anglican priest, this is one of the things after communion. You know, you clean.
Swish it about, get the rest.
Okay. So give us a quick cleansing.
Where was he?
Many places. St Augustine's Adelaide. Woodville Gardens. No, I've got water. Yeah.
On the water.
Okay.
This is a botrytis Chardonnay. This will be interesting.
Yeah. Oh, this is fantastic.
This is beyond good.
Oh.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, yeah.
So if you can't drink a Chateau de Caen, then you drink this.
This is a nice,
Just a
nice
generous
to
bloody
finish
pour.
it off.
Bloody
Finish
hell.
the evening.
Oh, love that. Love that.
Yep.
Look at that colour. All right.
It's got a bit of age on it, hasn't it? Obviously.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, yeah.
All right. Hi, everyone.
Not your average Chardonnay.
This is not. I will just say for the record that here we are at Studio 91, and we're in the middle of recording. The toilet's a long way away, so I just. No, I didn't. I didn't. I didn't.
No, he didn't.
All right. Let's.
Oh, that's wonderful.
Isn't it nice?
That's wonderful.
$10 a bottle if you buy a dozen.
Ridiculous.
Get out of here.
The best $120 you'll ever spend. Seriously. Oh, that's beautiful. Okay, let's do this.
The perfect nightcap. That one
Finish
finishes.
this clean. That's the point.
Oh, yeah.
Finish this, yeah.
Yep.
Okay. Finally tonight, the musical pilgrimage will bring us home. Just before we play our song, I want to do a very quick thank you to some people who've made this possible. Nigel, obviously, you've been stoic and reliable right throughout. Could not have possibly done this without you, so thank you so much for you just being the rock that we built this show on.
Thank you.
Nadia, my wife, she has made space for the 15 hours a week that goes into this indulgence, but also great injecting of ideas along the way. Leads also for interviews, questions. All our guests, like Keith Conlon here, I mean, without you, this would not have been possible.
Well, I think what people don't see because they're listening to the show is we've gone to places, we've had meals, we've had food put on, extra wine, a lot of extra wine some nights. And our guests have been in Adelaide have been amazingly accommodating.
Yeah.
Into their homes most of the time. We're actually invited into their homes. The family's still around, and we set up our microphones and recording equipment, and it's seen as an acceptable sort of thing, which is really amazing when you think you're inviting sort of pretty near total strangers into your house with recording equipment to just capture your passion at whatever you do.
And also to David Hales and Kirsty here tonight in Morphett Vale. They've got this wonderful studio, Studio 91, which is available to hire for you to do anything you like, photo shoots, video, anything you like, for very, very affordable prices. And so thank you to David and Kirsty for making this possible tonight. But our guests like Keith, Don Violi from Chrome Hair Studio, seriously, he's cut Don Dunstan's hair in his past. He's mixed it with the Ferris Trabilses. He used to wear a mink coat, snort cocaine, and suit around on his roller skate. At least in my mind, That's what he was like in his hairdressing career.
He let you win a pinball as well.
And he did, thank you. Nona Mona, Ralph Hadsick, David Manier, the chair of the Adelaide Fringe, has been very supportive. He got us John Schumann on the show with him together when we did our Fringe production. So thank you to them. Other media people have nudged us along as well. David Washington from In Daily. Andrew Reimer has been an absolute stalwart, allowing me, and I've got one more coming, half an hour on 5AA every Sunday night, talking about what's on each week's podcast. So that's just above and beyond the call of duty. Jim Manning at WOW FM, amazing. Our listeners have got involved. Andrea Ferguson, in particular, a very engaged listener. There are times when she's just sent the most beautiful message that has been a burst of energy that just keeps you going when you're down and feeling a bit pasty and worn out. You'll never understand how important they've been. Alexis Catley, who also does the show PBAFM, amazing. His words of encouragement, his insights have been superb. And just also physically turning up. Alexis has come to see me do stand-up. He's come to our Fringe nights. He's there. He just is in the number, as has Andrea too. Also, a life-changing mention to a mate of mine, Brett Williams, who was a family therapist. When we did our eulogy program, there's one thing he said to me that's changed my relationship with my daughters. He said, every time when you say goodnight, do this all your life if you can. Say to them, I love you, you are worthwhile, you're the child I always wanted. They've blossomed. Amazing. So thank you, Brett. That is the gem of these 5 years. And it's almost finished. Also, that's it. This has been fantastic. There's so many more people we could say thank you to, but it's been an amazing ride. Another man we've met, Reese Howlett, not only the winemaker who made the small change wine we had tonight, he's got this beautiful song called Eagle on the Hill. We listened to it in the car on the way. Keith, first your thoughts about we talk Eagle on the Hill, bumping into everyone you know at the airport.
That's right. He actually nails all of those little things that make us very Adelaidean, and at the same time builds in one of our kind of places. You know, the old Eagle on the Hill, the pub started in 1853 and it only got knocked over when we built the tunnels. And all that time there've been people, everybody would have a story about the Eagle, even if it was only when they went past. You know,
Yes.
So it's a terrific evocation of living in Adelaide, being in Adelaide.
My car, my HG70 panel van, broke down coming back to Adelaide and rolled in neutral down into the service station.
Well, that was the thing about the Eagle on the Hill is, like, it was the world's most horrible, close to the most horriblest main road on the universe, pretty much. It was, especially in winter, absolute
hard
shocker.
work.
Like, I nearly died there coming off on a motorbike. But you actually could, once you got to that top bit of it and you knew it was downhill all the way, you knew that basically, as long as most of the wheels didn't fall off, you had at least 3, maybe 2 wheels. You could make it to the bottom with a servo down on the corner of Cross and Port Rush. And it's like, as long as you can get there, you're good. It was an amazing,
on the way
horrible
up,
drive.
on the way up in the old days, because the road was windy and cars were not built the way they were. The RAA used to have sort of just sort of 5-gallon drums of water because you were going to run out. The old
For your radiator.
Summer overheating,
my
going
dear
up
mum
the
managed
road.
to take the flipping top off the radiator. Up she went without, burning herself horribly. But that's what happened to everybody.
Yeah.
Everybody did that. If you got to the Eagle on Hill on the way up, you were almost to Oakbank and the races.
Yeah, once you got to that high point, at the top it's like, okay, I've done the... you were totally stressed out, thinking your car was going to break down or something would go wrong or overheat, because it is a reasonable uphill. And like in summer, it'll be hot.
And now it applies to cyclists. If you can get round that bend where the park, just before that's a terrible hard bend. If you get there, you're going to make it to the top.
And can I say, for years of working, I did 7.5 years at 5MU, so I did a lot of trips back and forth. Back in those days, I had the most magnificent choreographed way to get down in record time. Didn't break the speed limit, but I knew which lane to be in when, where people would be, and I just had that nailed. It was magnificent. I had it like the back of my hand.
Jeez,
DNA.
it reminded me, we used to ride our treadleys up, because I lived in Conlon Gardens. We'd ride our treadleys up through was basically a timber track to get right up high and then ride ourselves into Crafers and then down the hill.
That would have been on what, the old bullet track?
Bullock tracks
Yeah,
up
the
that-
bullock
up
track
the
went
back
up a hill.
You went up
Yeah.
the back of Belair. You know, you went
Oh, yeah.
past the Belair station and
Yep.
somehow you ended up the top.
Yeah, it cuts around the back. Yep.
But then
they're coming down.
Oh,
Hey, as long as you didn't die,
And
it was great.
See, this is what this guy's done for us
Yeah.
with Eagle on the Hill.
Oh, absolutely. So let's have a listen to it. And also, a musical part of the show has been an important part. We've finished every episode for 260 weeks with a local song by a local artist who's given us permission to play it. And we started that process with Brett Monton, our initial musical curator, Susan Liddy. Others have followed. Todd Fisher has been our last musical curator. We gave him the night off tonight because I'd already spoken to Reese and we'd agreed this is the song to go out on. So let's have a listen. Reese Howlett and Eagle on the Hill. And sorry for everyone watching at home, but we actually played that in the recorded
Didn't bring the
episode.
gramophone.
Yeah, you'll have to
Yes.
download and listen to the episode.
Yeah.
Let's say goodbye. All right, let's do the final goodbye. Give us a good clap in, and we'll
Traditional clap.
traditional clap
Yeah.
this time.
Yeah, traditional
All
clap.
right, here we go.
Not convinced of this newfangled technology.
Such a traditionalist. Eagle on the Hill, Reese Howlett. Wow, great song. He's got many more great songs, including Philip White's Tincture. He had a song about a tincture because we interviewed Philip White a few months ago, and we played that song. It's a great song as well. Awesome bass lines he comes up with. Anyway, thank you. Seriously, this is not a show this is actually a voluntary thing. It's not a commercial thing, but I've got to say, the Populous Wines in Coonawarra, this 2008 Botrytis Chardonnay, $10 a bottle when you buy a dozen, is simply amazing. You've got to get some while there's some left. It's just so pleasing.
Yeah.
And it's not overly sticky.
No, it's not. It's a sweet wine, of course, because it's
Yes.
botrytis, but it doesn't overdo it, and it finishes clean. It's a lovely dessert drop.
Yeah,
Very nice.
For the ending of a night, it is a very good drop.
Yes. So, Keith, thank you for coming along and seeing us out.
Been a great pleasure. Been great to be here.
All right. Thank you to David and Kirsty here at Studio 91 for making this possible to live stream it and have some video to take home with us. Nigel, thank you.
Thank you. Thank you for running it and doing all the hard work.
That's my
It's your passion.
psychological burden. But I think once we take a few weeks off, cool our heels, think again. I've got some ideas for a lighter style of doing this to keep it happening, because it would kill me. I mean, even though I'm going to have a fringe show, a stand-up comedy fringe show, not to be reviewing the fringe for the Adelaide show would be,
There you go.
you know.
So there, next March, at the very latest.
Yes, exactly.
On behalf of all of your listeners and viewers, it's been good to know you.
Thank you, Keith. Thank you very much. Thank you, Nigel.
Thank you.
And as we say at the end of every single episode, we've done it for 260 nights, weeks, we've said good night to Don Dunstan. So, good night, Don. That's it.
Yeah.
Now we'll just improvise some quick
Oh, I'm
video,
going to do a little promo thing.
and then that's it. We're
Yeah.
finished.
Yeah.
Please, there's one last Lamington left. I think that's got your name on it, Kirsty.
Yeah, I think so,
Go for
Kirsty.
it.
Otherwise, it'll cause a fight. It'll be a bit most.
There's a voice come from
Actually,
somewhere.
Let's save the
The voice
Lamington
is
for
spoken.
David, and you have the
Yeah,
wine.
sorry about that.
Have the dessert one.
He can have the Lamington.
Okay.
There's a
lovely.
nice little bit of wine
Child,
left. You'll
remember
be
that.
right.
What?
Must get Kirsty to get a shot of us. through
Yes,
this
that'd be
too,
great.
So we can, because the podcast will go up when you reckon.
Wednesday night.
Wednesday night is when it goes
Yep.
up. Yeah.
Just sitting there with the booth door open, waiting for his Lamington.
Hey Steve, do you want to keep streaming?
Yes, we'll just stream for another 5 minutes, and then we're just to capture this. Is that if that's okay?
Absolutely.
Yep. This
All
is
right.
the making of the promo.
This is the making of the promo that we do at the end of every week's episode. So you're going to see this happen live. Now,
I'm just going to do a still shot.
oh, you're going to do a still shot?
just while we're here.
And that's wide enough for all of us?
Yeah, you're all in.
Okay, I'll
Let's
lose
go.
my...
Kirsty, can
We
I
have
get
a
you to
flashing
take
lights.
a real sort of big whitey and then
Here we
just
go.
while we're mucking about, just get...
Oh, so is that on
that on?
10
This
seconds?
is 10-second time.
Okay,
We're about
quick,
to go.
at the camera,
Oh,
quick.
Nope, do it again.
Oh, we'll do it again.
Yep.
Okay, so that's one photo we've just taken with nobody looking
Oh,
at
this
the
is a
camera.
still. This is a 10
Yeah,
second.
this
This
is
is a
a
10-second
still.
countdown.
Yes,
At the
okay.
camera.
Beautiful. It's
Did it.
so good to have good lighting.
Yeah, nice, flat, even.
What if you held Larry Lamington up, even on your shoulder as like a parrot? Nigel, what if you held the poplars and throw me the small...
Small change.
Yep, small change. We'll do that in this shot as well. A totally iconic essay.
Yep. Ready for 10 seconds?
Yep.
One for luck.
Beautiful. So,
Video.
quick video idea. What if...
What if?
Oh, let's just put Keith on the spot. Let's just keep... So if you just get a camera similar to where that one is... I mean, I could probably just take it from... I'm not
You
sure...
always pull it off the YouTube anyway.
I could, but...
We'll do it anyway.
if you said... I'll just ask you a couple of questions.
Yeah.
All right?
Yep. Yeah.
And I've got an idea where it's going to go, and you might be very uncomfortable. That's all right. Oh, are you doing that as video or like...
I'm going to do a video. Just
Okay.
Audio on. Do
Yep.
some speaking. That's all good.
And thank you, everybody, if you've been watching tonight. We've appreciated it. We might have had, what, 2 people watching?
Oh, I haven't checked. I'm too busy.
Busy.
Been
Oh, the
switching,
camera switching's been awesome.
Switching.
And we'll be doing lots of mentioning of Studio 91 through the week.
That's running.
We did some in the show,
I saw. Thank you.
which will be in the audio. And are we're good to go?
Yeah, it's all running.
Now, at the moment, it's only me and Keith on screen.
Yeah,
Oh, righto.
Now, that's okay, David, actually.
Well, it can be because you'll be doing the talking anyway.
All right.
Nah.
I don't need to be recording this. That's fine. That's done. All right. Are we good?
Believe
Oh,
so.
so are you recording on
Yeah,
sound?
yeah, it's
Okay,
recording,
beautiful. Hi, everyone. Episode 260 of the Adelaide Show comes out tonight, Wednesday night. It's the final
It's the last.
of our 5-year run. Every week, without missing a single week, we have put out at least 90 minutes of interview, sometimes 2 hours, sometimes 2.5.
Are we talking post production or pre production?
No, post, the edited bit.
Yeah.
You didn't go 2 hours.
Oh, we've gone...
we've gone way longer than 2 hours. We've probably knocked up more than one 4-hour interview.
Oh, yes.
Yeah.
Oh, yes.
If you want in depth,
Yeah,
we
yeah.
are your people for in
Yeah,
depth
yeah,
interviews.
And Shane...
Because brevity may be the soul of wit, but that's
If you
not what
actually-
you were looking for.
If you actually want to know someone a lot, we
Yes.
are good at that.
Yes. And Shane Yeen, we're looking at you. We actually
Yeah.
did a whole show with you.
Yeah.
We had 5 bottles of Barossa Shiraz and ended up deciding collectively that we should re-record that episode.
Right.
Which we did. Anyway, it's been a fantastic 5 years. Keith Conlon was our guest for tonight's episode to see us through. Did we ask you enough about South Australia and heritage and planning for you to feel satiated?
Well, no, but I fitted it in anyway.
You did,
know?
yes. Yes.
Regardless of the question. No, it's been good because, I mean, that's the guts of the show, isn't it? South Australia.
Yeah.
And so we went all over the joint, didn't we?
So, question, without notice,
Right.
you did breakfast
13
radio
years.
for 13 years.
Yes.
What do Nigel and I need to work on to be invited to do such a gig?
Right.
Is it brevity?
Well, you've got the face. Brevity would be a start. That's right. I have these news services and ads and stuff
Yes.
to fit in.
What, like a 5-minute news summary or something bizarre?
Yeah.
Oh,
You could do
this
your I mean, you love the news bit. You
Yeah.
love your little news spot, don't you?
especially fake news. But
Yeah, particularly...
it's
so-
been taken up by others these days as well.
sure
though.
it
Like,
has,
we,
isn't
we
it?
were the first cab off the rank, but
don't know
others have rode that one to fame.
No,
I mean, I don't know if Anne Stone is ready on 5AA to actually do... Some of these stories are true.
Oh,
And the listeners have to guess.
You have to watch that.
Yeah.
Yes, exactly.
We could do the fake news show where one story is actually true.
Possibly.
Although, how would they know us from any other
I was going to
news
say,
story?
well, if you're in the States, you know, get used to it.
Yeah.
However, tonight's episode, a lot of stories are true.
Oh, almost all.
Some gruesome stories from our
Oh,
past.
the first hanging.
I know.
The first public
I think
hanging.
he went a bit far with that one.
Oh,
We
you
were-
think so?
Please don't listen to episode 260 while you're having dinner.
I don't think
No.
we weren't really great at hanging people back then, were we? Really?
No.
No.
It wasn't our thing.
We didn't
No.
have the hang of it.
Oh.
On that note, big thank you to David Hales and Kirsty here at Studio 91 for making us feel at home and to live streaming our episode tonight. You saw me, if you were watching the stream, have a coughing fit at one point. Kirsty fetched us water.
That's the bit that broke the internet. I wasn't
Yes,
there.
I took ages to open the packet of Kyton's Lamingtons.
yeah.
It's over. Anyway, this studio is available for hire at a price that's amazing. So don't tell David because he'll put it up, but it's awesome. So make use of it, please. And thank you for 5 years of fun. And we're going to take a few weeks break and cool our heels.
Come back with
Who
something.
knows?
See what happens.
Yep.
And in the meantime, if you're not doing anything, Tuesday night, September 11, Cranker Comedy at the Crown and Anchor between 8 and 10 sometime. I'll be doing 5 minutes of stand-up comedy as I put into practice what I've been learning for so many years.
As opposed to 2 hours we get
Yes.
every week.
Oh, and so let's say tonight, the episode 260 is out everywhere as usual, and I think David's got a clapperboard to see us home with.
Just to make it official, fellas.
There you go.
Upside down.
We're done. Thanks, everyone. Thank you so much.
Cheers.
We're done.
We're done. That was good. Oh, well
Decent
done.
Oh,
Thank you.
good.
Good on
Awesome.
you. Thanks, Kirsty.
Lovely. Oh,
Oh, yeah. Lots of
now,
knocking about. Excellent.
Kirsty.